Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting of January 12, 2016. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Avalos. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos present. President Breed.
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Campos.
Present.
Campos present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen absent. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell present. Supervisor Kim. Kim present. Supervisor Marr.
Here.
Marr present. Supervisor Peskin.
Present.
Peskin present. Supervisor Tang.
Present.
Tang present. Supervisor Wiener.
Present.
Wiener present. Supervisor Yee.
Present.
Yee present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it's one nation.
Thank you, colleagues. Supervisor Cohen is currently traveling out of the country. Can I entertain a motion to excuse Supervisor Cohen? Moved by Supervisor Marr, seconded by Supervisor Yee. Colleagues, can we take this without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Cohen is excused. All right, Madam Clerk, can we go to the next item?
That would have been at communications, Madam President. We'll let the minutes show that we have that communication that Supervisor Cohen has asked to be excused.
Okay, and now we'll go to the minutes. Colleagues, is there any changes to the November 17th or December 1st of 2015 meeting minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve those minutes? Motioned by Supervisor Campos, seconded by Supervisor Marr. Colleagues, can we take this without objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will be approved after public comment. Madam Clerk, can you please read the consent agenda?
Items on consent 1 through 6 are considered routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Supervisor Yee.
I'd like to remove item number 4.
Okay. Madam Clerk, on the remaining items excluding item number 4, can you please call the roll?
Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener. Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Those items are passed finally and adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you read item number 4, please?
Item 4 is an ordinance to amend the planning code to increase the child care in lieu fee for office and hotel development projects of up to $157 per gross square foot and apply the fee to projects of $25,000 or more gross square foot, to impose a tiered child care fee for residential development projects of up to $183 per gross square foot, to allow developers the option to provide on-site small family daycare homes in lieu of the fee, and affirming the Planning Department's CEQA determination and making other findings of consistency with the general plan.
Okay, Supervisor Yee.
Thank you, President Bree. I basically wanted to duplicate the files, and the reason why is we're working on trailing legislation that could be easily added to the duplicated file, and I wanted that option, and we're not quite ready to include that at this moment. So I'd like us to vote on the original and also duplicate the file for future consideration.
Okay. So would you like it to be sent to a specific committee, or you just want it to be duplicated?
Let's just leave it open for now.
Okay.
Madam President, that item either will be returned to the board at a specific date or should be sent to committee.
Okay. So would you like, can we send it to committee? Okay. So Supervisor Yee has made a motion to send the duplicated file to committee. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Campos. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, the motion passes. And on the item, colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, let's go to item number 7.
Item 7 is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 89-10 to authorize the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission to enter into one or more State Water Resource Control Board installment sale agreements and grants in an amount not to exceed approximately $1.7 billion to finance the costs of the West Side Recycled Water Project, among other projects, as enacted by the voters to the Charter on November 5th, 2002, and ratifying other previous actions taken in connection with this ordinance.
Colleagues, can we take this ordinance, same house, same call? Without objection, this ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 8 is an ordinance to amend the Administrative Code to add Chapter 110 to establish the San Francisco right-of-way policy, which under certain circumstances makes arrests and citations of bicyclists for failure to stop at a stop sign the lowest traffic enforcement priority, requires quarterly reports on statistics related to traffic enforcement, injuries, and fatalities prepared by the police department, and urges the Municipal Transportation Agency to develop a program to educate the public about this new policy.
Roll call vote.
On item 8, Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, no. Supervisor Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr?
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
No.
Peskin, no. Supervisor Tang?
No.
Tang, no. Supervisor Wiener?
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee?
No.
Yee, no. Supervisor Avalos?
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. There are 6 ayes and 4 noes, with Supervisors Farrell, Peskin, Tang, and Yee in the dissent.
The ordinance is finally passed. Item 9, please.
Item 9 is a resolution to authorize the issuance, sale, and delivery of multifamily housing revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $31.5 million for the purpose of providing financing for the acquisition and construction of an 82-unit multifamily rental housing project known as Alice Griffith Phase 3A Apartments Projects.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call?
Madam President, you will need to take a roll call vote.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on item number 9?
On item 9, Supervisor Farrell. On item 9, the multifamily housing revenue bonds. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr?
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener?
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee?
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos?
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos?
Aye.
Campos, aye. There are 10 ayes.
The resolution is adopted unanimously. All right, next item, please.
Madam President, being that it's not 2:30, we'll go to roll call for the introduction of new business.
Okay.
Supervisor Farrell, you're first up.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I have a number of items today. First of all, a piece of legislation. You know, our board and our city continue to have a strong record of prioritizing improvements in public health and encouraging healthier lifestyles for our employees and residents here in San Francisco. Healthy eating is a key factor in reducing a number of chronic conditions, and whether we fight with the soda tax or other measures, we continue to take a leading effort here in the city of San Francisco against numerous health diseases, from obesity to heart disease, stroke, cancer, and other serious and life-threatening diseases such as diabetes. These conditions do cost our taxpayers millions of dollars each year in healthcare costs, and I do believe it should be our priority as a board to seek to lower those costs whenever possible and continue to promote healthy lifestyles in our city. I believe we need to do everything in our power to implement policies to seek to educate our public about the benefits of healthy eating and lifestyles and policies to make healthy choices. Especially as a father of 3 young children, I do believe in leading by example. I also believe that city government can and should lead by example whenever possible. That's why today I'm introducing the Healthy Snack Food and Beverage Policy. This is one of the strongest policies in the country that will do a number of things. For the first time in our city's history, it will set nutrition standards and guidelines for food and beverages sold in vending machines on city property. It will set nutrition standards and guidelines for food and beverages served for city meetings or sponsored city events using public resources, and encourages restaurants and concessions on city property to have a balance of healthy foods and beverage options for the consumers. The first component of the legislation sets specific nutritional standards and guidelines for vending machines that we developed in consultation with the American Heart Association, our Department of Public Health, and our health services system, and are some of the strongest in the country. It will limit calories offered in prepackaged foods and vending machines, as well as limit the type of options being served in our vending machines. These are prospective, so new standards and guidelines will apply only to contracts and property contracts entered into future dates. The second component requires that city departments use their best efforts to ensure that foods and beverages served at city meetings or city-sponsored events purchased using city funds meet the recommended nutritional guidelines. And the last component strongly encourages restaurants and concessions on city property to have a better balance of healthier food options available to consumers. While this legislation does mean that you may not be able to get your favorite candy bar or soda from vending machines in the basement of City Hall, we're only making these standards apply to city buildings and properties. Again, from my perspective, our city government should lead by example. And I have to say, time and time again, when my children come to visit me inside of City Hall and we go down to get a snack, when their eyes glare and lock in at the Snickers bar and the Twix bar downstairs, that is something that I want to change because it's not something that we allow in our household. And I don't think it's something we want to allow or encourage here in City Hall. I do believe that we owe it to over 28,000 city employees and our taxpayers to implement policies that not only provide healthier lifestyles, but cost taxpayers savings. This legislation would not have been possible without the guidance and input from a number of organizations and individuals. I do want to call them out in particular, especially first and foremost the American Heart Association and their members, in particular Brittany, their government affairs director in the Bay Area, who we've worked very closely with, our Department of Public Health, our health services system, and my staff, in particular Jess Montejano. Two other items today that I'm introducing, two in memoriams that I would like to ask that we dismiss the board meeting on behalf with the entire board. First of all, is an in memoriam for someone that I've known for decades, a gentleman named Jack Grealish. Jack was a native San Franciscan. He was the son of Irish immigrants, Molly Carr and Martin Grealish. He lived and grew up on 18th and Douglas in Eureka Valley and attended the Most Holy Redeemer Grammar School. Unlike many people, he actually attended both Sacred Heart and St. Ignatius in high school here in San Francisco. He was the only SI athlete to play 4 varsity sports, shuttling himself between track meets and baseball doubleheaders. He attended St. Mary's College in Moraga, where he played football and basketball. And during World War II, he was called to duty and spent a year in service overseas in Japan. Upon returning, he enrolled at University of San Francisco, where he played baseball. He earned all-coast honors and batted .382. He met his wife, Patricia Hallinan, a St. Rose girl, on a St. Brendan's ski trip in a very true San Francisco fashion. They were married in 1950 and became the family building that the Irish were famous for. After their home on 17th and Terrell became too small, they moved to Westlake in 1955. They were early parishioners of Our Lady of Mercy, where their children attended school. Jack Grealish is a member of the San Francisco Prep Hall of Fame, the USF Hall of Fame, and a 55-year veteran of the Olympic Club here in San Francisco. He claimed his fondest sports memories are the lifelong friends he made while competing, including so many San Francisco legends, including Pete Newell, Jim Ryan, and Jack Shields. He owned the famous Flying Goose sporting goods store on Terraville for some time, where many of us who grew up in the city bought our sporting goods, and retired from Bank of America years ago. He is survived by 6 children, Marty, Steve, Noni, Bob, John, and Joe, 16 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter, Claire. I've known the Grealish family for years, since going to high school here in San Francisco. There could not be a more incredible family here in the city of San Francisco. This is truly a patriarch that we have lost of one of our great families, and we all will miss him greatly. Second of all, I have an in memoriam today for William, or Bill Del Monte. Many of you might have read about him over the last few days in the newspaper. Bill was born January 22nd, 1906, and was the last remaining known survivor of the 1906 earthquake here in San Francisco. He passed away yesterday, 11 days short of his 110th birthday. He is the husband of the late Vera Minetti. Bill and Vera never had children, but was a beloved uncle, brother, and friend. He passed his retirement home in Marin of natural causes, And according to his niece, Jeanette Barocca, who is a District 2 resident, he had been doing great for 109 years old. Bill's family lived in a house on the corner of Kearny and Broadway, and Bill was just 3 months old when the quake struck. His quote said, "My mother in the kitchen, she put the tablecloth around me, wrapped it around me as a bundle, and put me on a horse-drawn cart, and we went down Broadway Street to the ferry. There was fire on both sides of the street. They made it to the ferry building and crossed the bay to Alameda County, but eventually came back to the city after home was rebuilt. His father had opened the famous Fior d'Italia on Broadway in 1886. It was destroyed in the quake, but reopened in a tent not long thereafter. It still flourishes today in North Beach." When recently asked about the memories of specific neighborhoods over the decades, he recounted a field in the marina where his father and their friends would compete to see who could throw a wheel of cheese the furthest. The Mission was home to his high school, Cogswell, to which he would commute every day from Elmhurst via streetcar, then train, then ferry, then streetcar again. Transit First has lived long in San Francisco. The Outer Richmond was the entrance point to Sutro Baths, where he would take dips with friends in ice-cold pools. And the Haight, well, he didn't have much reason to visit the Haight. He was already in his 60s by the summer of love. Bill's passion included playing the stock market and running a theater in the city for several years. He was recently quoted as saying, "I lived a wonderful life through 100 years, through wars and everything. I've had a lucky life, luckier than a lot of people on this earth. I have no complaints." Truly the last of a generation of San Franciscans, a special place in our history in San Francisco, and again, a family member of a beloved District 2 resident, and I hope we can honor his memory today. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Housing affordability, as everyone in this chamber knows, is the #1 issue here in San Francisco. As rent and median home prices continue to rise, we also need to increase our affordable housing stock. I've said this before, but 60% of San Francisco residents qualify today for affordable housing and are badly in need of that housing right now. We can't afford to wait any longer. 450,000 San Franciscans live in the city's 220,000 apartment units. Only 30,000 of these apartments are dedicated to affordable housing today. In addition to our very low and low-income individuals and families, we're also hearing from middle-class residents that are afraid that they will not be able to call San Francisco and the neighborhood that they live in their homes either. This is no longer just folks that are in our working-class communities that are unstable in their employment. We are hearing from nurses, firefighters, teachers, entry-level workers, lawyers, and engineers that they can no longer afford to live in San Francisco either. That is why today, along with Supervisor Aaron Peskin, I am introducing a charter amendment that will be before the voters in June that will remove a barrier that is currently in our city charter to building more affordable housing for San Franciscans today. We are deleting a cap that is currently set by the charter, setting a maximum of 12% on-site affordable housing that is a standard for our market rate developers here in San Francisco. It prioritizes and on-site inclusionary housing that is affordable to low and middle-income San Franciscans, and we are instead proposing to double our inclusionary on-site from 12% to 25%. Increasing the number from 20% to 33% for off-site and 33% for fees in lieu of units. Our housing crisis impacts each of our districts and all of our neighborhoods. And because of that, I'm introducing a motion for the entire board to sit as a committee of the whole to hear this charter amendment. We need to act swiftly and put this charter amendment for the ballot on June 2016. Voters want action today. We are seeing this in our polls, but also for all of us that go out into the neighborhoods and communities. In every single meeting, voters want more solutions, not a year from now. And that is why we're acting to bring forward this charter amendment, another solution to building more affordable housing to voters in June. We already know what works. We've had countless housing work group meetings. We've had countless discussions and countless hearings here at this Board of Supervisors. We have the solutions that we already need, so let's act to remove a barrier to building more affordable housing in San Francisco by putting forward a charter amendment that unties the Board of Supervisors from being limited to a ceiling of 12%. While we set a new standard of 25%, this also allows the board in the future to be able to act via ordinance around setting maximums and minimums here at the board legislatively so that we can respond swiftly and flexibly during times of good, but also in times of recession. I look forward to working with members of the board to ensure that we're building affordable housing in all of our districts and neighborhoods, and the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, on Saturday, January 23rd, that's next Saturday at 1 p.m., I'm co-hosting along with the Housing Rights Committee and the Coalition of SF Neighborhoods a community meeting to discuss housing affordability and the mayor's proposed affordable housing bonus program, and also protecting the neighborhood's character. It's going to be at the Richmond Rec Center at 18th and Clement Street. Also, it's an important issue that we're asking residents in the Richmond District and the western neighborhoods to ask questions, but also to work with us to strategize on the future of equitable development, neighborhood character protection, and the Richmond District, especially as it relates to the Planning Department staff's proposal and the mayor's proposal as well. For more information on this January 23rd, 1 p.m. meeting at the Richmond Rec Center, call Nick Pagalatos from my office, 415-554-7412. Also, an important intersection of art, environment, and education is a campaign led by the Surfrider Foundation in San Francisco. I'd like to invite you to a special art reception and exhibit called Message in a Bottle. It's an evening of art and education focused on ocean plastic pollution, and it's hosted by San Francisco's chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. I'd also like to thank Park Life, Jamie Alexander, Derek Song, and Park Life Gallery, and also Michael Busk of Bus Vans for supporting this important art, environment, and education effort. It's going to be next Friday and Sunday. Message in a Bottle is a collaboration of our local artists and environmentalists focusing on the ocean and protection of the ocean and fighting ocean pollution in an effort to inform the public, especially young people, and to inspire change and ignite corporate responsibility. I wanted to thank, especially from the Surfrider Foundation, Eva Holman, and also Deborah Lowe and many others that have organized this event. The cocktail reception will be including music of Jeff Desira and the art of many incredible artists, including Jonathan Anzalone, Patrick Kaus, Ariel Gold, Judith Selby Lang, and so many more. We're asking the public to help us complete a mural. So it's one of the other number of murals that we're implementing in the inner Richmond. But this is a mural that is made of plastic picked up from our local beaches during the event. If any of you have ever come out to the Surfrider cleanups of Ocean Beach, you can gather in a short amount of time all the plastics, straws, cigarette butts, and everything. But so the Surfrider Foundation has been doing that for many years now. But we're turning it into art and murals. Local ocean-friendly crafts will be for sale along with most of the art displayed, and with each purchase of a Clean Canteen stainless steel pint water bottle, food and beverage will be included. But with the purchase of the Clean Canteen bottles, the proceeds will go to Surfrider Foundation. I also know that there's a lot of donations of food and beer, so I think with those Clean Canteen stainless steel water bottles, people will be able to have as much beer as you can drink at the event as well. The gallery exhibit includes, thank you, the gallery exhibit includes or will hang for a week and allows school groups, the public, and environmental organizations to visit the space and interact with the art exhibit and campaign. On Sunday, the 24th, from 10 to 1, it's a family-oriented event. There'll be a family reception and a craft day at the San Francisco chapter of the Surfrider Foundation in Supervisor Tang's district at 3830 Noriega Street. Join Surfrider for a day of ocean education, crafts, music, and fun, and view the student art of the Message in a Bottle gallery show. For more information, go to sfsurfrider.org. Also coming up in a few minutes, we'll be honoring an amazing health equity leader, Beatrice Cardenas Duncan, and I'll wait until that time. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I rise, unfortunately, to to a number of in memoria. It has been quite a while since we last met, and I would like to adjourn today's board meeting in the memory of a number of individuals. First, the mother of somebody I think known to all of us, Rachel Gordon. Her mother, Zelda, passed away several weeks ago, and our condolences to Rachel and her sister, Sarah, and the rest of her family. I did not know her mother, but by all accounts, she was an incredible woman and very, very connected and loving of her family. Sorry, Rachel. And then a North Beach fixture, a gentleman named Roy Martini, who was famous, if not infamous, as one of my neighbors said on Hoodline. He proved that you can live with mental illness, and we will all be poor for his passing. You never knew what Roy you would get on any given day. Sometimes he would scream at you. Sometimes he would give you a hug. But he was taken care of by the entire neighborhood. Central Station and the officers there teamed up with the denizens of the local cafe and raised over $1,000 to get him what he really wanted, which was dentures. As a matter of fact, I took him down to a Project Homeless Connect and got one of his last teeth yanked out so he could get those dentures. And, of course, then he promptly lost them. But Roy was beloved by the neighborhood, and he will be missed, and our condolences to his sister, Linda. A wonderful District 3 resident, Stuart Jackson, unfortunately was murdered. He was beaten at the corner of Van Ness and Market Street. For anybody who has information, there's actually some video footage that is on Hoodline. And the tip line for anybody who has any information is 415-575-4444. A wonderful, sweet poet and artist. He will be missed. Our condolences to his brother Bob. And then I have the very sad news that today Ray Morante, who was for 25 years a veteran SFMTA operator, has succumbed to his injuries that he sustained after being hit by a motorcyclist while working on the Powell-Mason cable car line. He's been hanging on for quite a number of months, and he passed away. He began his career at the Kirkland Bus Yard in District 3 and spent the last 3 years as a cable car operator. Our condolences to his colleagues at the MTA and in the cable car barn, and to his wife, Josephine Morante. And finally, another neighborhood fixture, Denise Dorio, passed away on Christmas Eve. There was almost nobody in and around North Beach all the way to Fisherman's Wharf who didn't know Denise. Her life centered around her family and friends and her community at Gino and Carlo, a beloved neighborhood institution. She loved the 49ers and the Giants and was an incredible cook for the dozens of people who come to the lunches there, and she will be missed. I will submit the rest. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Supervisor Weiner.
Submit.
Supervisor Yee.
Thank you. I'd like to adjourn this meeting in memory of Patty Siegel. For more than 40 years, Patty dedicated her life and career to advocating on all issues related to children, child care, early education, and family support services. She championed efforts to provide parents and child care providers with information, support, and training with the ultimate goal that families would be able to make informed child care choices and children would be cared for in safe, healthy, and child care environments by caregivers that supported their growth. However, Patty was more than that. I mean, she was a mother, a grandmother, and she was a friend to me. Patty was married to Sanford Siegel for 49 years, who passed last year and was honored here at the board. As I mentioned, I've known Patty since the late 70s and have personally witnessed her many accomplishments. It is impossible in a brief moment of time to give justice to the impact she had not only here in San Francisco, but throughout California and nationally. In the early 70s, Patty Siegel was a determined mother of 3 small children who began by organizing neighborhood playgroups in response to the growing community need for full-time childcare. Quickly, there was a wait list formed, and in 1972, she helped to found one of the nation's first childcare resource and referral agencies. At the time, it was called if anybody's been around that long, like me, it was called the Childcare Switchboard, which later became what most people would know as the Children's Council of San Francisco. Patty's passionate advocacy continued as did her impact in shaping and pushing for public policy that recognizes the role of childcare and early education as a vital component of the educational, economic, and social structure of communities. Then in 1976, Patty was instrumental in initiating and implementing alternative childcare solutions through the passage of state legislation which provided funding for the childcare resource and referral programs and alternative payment programs in every single county in California. Then in 1980, Patty became the founding executive director of the California Childcare Resource and Referral Network, further shaping state and federal policies for children and families. She held this post until 2011, and the R&R network has grown into the most established system of childcare resource and referral services in the country. Her work also included creating the Child Care Initiative Project, a statewide private-public partnership to expand the supply of licensed quality child care by recruiting and training new family child care providers. She has inspired and guided the development of another concept called the Parent Voices which is a grassroots parent-led effort to engage and empower parent leadership to actively and successfully participate in the policy process and play an essential role in the creation of implementation of what we call the trust line, which is really a registry, California registry for licensed exempt caregivers. Patty served on the Governor's Advisory Committee on Child Care Development, was one of the original state commissioners for the California Children and Families First Commission, known as First 5, and represented California in the Children's Defense Fund State Child Care Advocacy Network. She was the state advocate and liaison for the National Women's Law Center and volunteered her time and expertise with the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And she has a distinction of being one of the few people that I know that actually was invited by the Clinton administration to speak at the White House. Most recently, after her retirement, you would think that she's going to be able to settle into relaxing. No, she wanted to be and got into being a member of our latest DCYF Oversight and Advisory Committee Council. So as you see, she really advocated for our children throughout her life, and I'm really sad to see her leave us. Patty is survived by her children, Toby, Tara, and Kelsey, and her grandchildren, Declan, Chow, and Una. Patty will be truly missed as she was one of a kind, but there is no doubt that her spirit will continue through her children and people she has mentored, early educator advocates, and providers she have taught and inspired. She will be missed, but her legacy and impact continues. Madam President, on behalf of the full Board of Supervisors, I would like to close today's meeting in memory of Patty Siegel. The rest I submit.
Okay, colleagues, can we approve this on behalf of the entire board without objection? Without objection, that is approved.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Avalos, you asked to be re-referred. Okay.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Madam President.
Thank you. Colleagues, I have 2 really important items to introduce today, so please bear with me. Both relate to the persistent and unacceptable violence that has happened on our streets. In October, I asked the City Attorney's Office to draft legislation creating a permanent city reward fund for those who provide information leading to an arrest and conviction in an unsolved murder case. Since then, my office has worked closely with the Police Department, the Controller's Office, the City Attorney's Office, and the Mayor's Director of Public Safety, Paul Henderson. Today, 3 days following the one-year anniversary of a horrific quadruple homicide in the Western Addition, I am proud to introduce my Homicide Reward Fund legislation. I want to thank our Deputy City Attorney, Tom Owen, for all of his work. And thank you to my co-sponsor, Supervisor Malia Cohen. In the past 6 years, San Francisco has averaged about 50 homicides per year. Each one is a tragedy. Each one is a loss of a son, a sister, a friend, a father. Each one should have never happened, and each one deserves every effort to bring justice. This city at times has offered rewards in specific cases, but it does so on an ad hoc basis, and there's no fund or consistent process associated with it. This legislation will create a permanent codified city fund to provide rewards of up to $250,000 for anyone who brings information that leads to an arrest and conviction in an unsolved murder case. The legislation establishes specific criteria because in some cases these homicides are solved without the need for a reward. So for a reward to be offered, the case must have gone unsolved for 1 year, and the department has had to exhaust all investigative leads and clearly demonstrate a need for public assistance. Any award over $100,000 will also require approval by the Board of Supervisors. The city can appropriate money to fund during the budget process, and the fund can also accept private donations. San Francisco is, according to most metrics, the wealthiest big city in the country, and with that wealth comes some obligations. As the Bible says, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. When it comes to the worst crimes our city faces, we should put our wealth to use, both to help the families of the victims and to get the most violent criminals off our streets. In the case of unsolved homicide, this reward will make the world of difference, and in those cases, we should be doing everything we can. Colleagues, for my second item today, I know that we have the mother of Mario Woods joining us here today. Miss Gwen Woods, and I know that Sean Richard from Brothers Against Guns is here, Reverend Amos Brown, the president of the NAACP, Minister Christopher, who has been spearheading the Coalition for Justice for Mario Woods, and I thank you all so much for being here today. My resolution, along with Supervisor Cohen, regarding yet another tragic death of an African-American man at the hands of the San Francisco Police Department is a resolution calling for an independent federal investigation of the shooting of Mario Woods. The Department of Justice Office is conducting a collaborative reform review of the policies, procedures, and training of the San Francisco Police Department as well, and these are important steps. But as the San Francisco Chronicle has said, what will help rebuild community trust in the department is an outside independent investigation, preferably from an institution with unimpeachable integrity and the authority to look at the big picture of whether the department has deep-seated problems with misconduct. Adding the investigation requires a rigor of independence that will lead to its credibility. The Task Force on 21st Century Policing, commissioned by President Obama, also recommended as one of the 6 pillars of best practices that police departments proactively request independent investigations of police-involved shootings in order to improve transparency and community relations. The U.S. Department of Justice investigated the October 2014 shooting of Laquan McDonald by the Chicago Police Department, and following requests from Illinois officials is now investigating whether the patterns and practices of the Chicago Police Department violate the civil rights of residents. I think San Francisco needs to follow Illinois' example and request a full, independent federal investigation of the shooting of Mario Woods itself. My resolution today will put that request officially on record. These items are so important to me because I know the pain of the folks here today. I have felt it myself. I've mourned the loss of far too many young African Americans in my life. And since December 2nd of last year, I mourn yet another. A century and a half ago, Harriet Tubman described her escape from slavery. I had crossed the line, she said. I was free, but there was no one to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land. Even now, we know there is no freedom without the right to be equal and to be welcomed and to feel safe in our own communities. Too many African Americans and Latinos and people of all races oftentimes are dying on our streets, and too often they're dying at the hands of those who are sworn in to protect them. I want you all to know we hear you. We hear you, and we are taking action. Supervisor Cohen and I, along with our colleagues, Supervisor Yee, Avalos, and Campos, have called for a hearing on the police department's use of force, and we hope to see you all at that hearing on Thursday, the 21st. I invite you all to come and provide your input. Our goal will be how to evaluate the training and procedures and how we can improve those procedures in order to prevent the escalation and the violence that has persisted for far too long. The ultimate goal is to put the right policies in place so this never happens again. Supervisor Cohen and I have introduced today's resolution calling for the independent federal investigation of the shooting death of Mario Woods. I wrote and today am submitting legislation to create a permanent reward fund to help solve unsolved homicide cases in this city. Supervisor Campos and Avalos have introduced a resolution expressing our shared sympathy for Mario Woods and his mother, and I want to thank Supervisor Campos and Avalos for their support. I am discussing with Minister Christopher the option to reestablish the Community Police Relations Board, which he spearheaded years ago. A board which he served as the leader of that board, along with folks like Reverend Brown and Sean, and also members of the police department, members of the community, who met on a regular basis to discuss how we can not only make the department better and hold them accountable, but how we can make sure that we continue to work on this relationship every single day. We rejected the $300 million jail, and my resolution instead will create more mental health capacity and is on the agenda today to be voted on. And lastly, I think we need to improve the political atmosphere about police-community relations in general. The Police Officers Association should be building bridges, not fighting those who are trying to help. I stand by my colleague, Supervisor Cohen, and we will not be intimidated by the POA. To everyone who has suffered violence in our city, or the tragedy of a life cut short by those who are called to protect them, we will do everything we can to ease your pain, with the hope that no one else will endure the same. And with that, colleagues, before I read a statement from Supervisor Cohen, I ask you to indulge me for a moment. We have Sean Richard here today from Brothers Against Gun, and I'd like to take an opportunity to invite him and the mother of Mario Woods up for comments to the members of the board. Ms. Gwen Woods, you are welcome to join us here today. And colleagues, can we allow them to speak without objection? Without objection.
Thank you very much. First, I want to add this. Everybody recognized how long people came into this community, or San Francisco, and lived. My dad, straight out of Beaumont, Texas, was naval. And that's when Sunnydale was naval owned. He bought our first home when I was 7. I went back to Houston and bought a home, and that's where I raised until my mom got terminal cancer. And I came back with my sons. And we were born and raised here. Mario was born and raised here. We didn't move in here. We were born and raised here. It was a more diverse. I came up under the Aliotos, the Feinsteins, the Jerry Browns. It was a much more diverse climate and embracing climate. We can do all these changes, and one thing I can't seem to understand. If we don't recognize that people wrote these racist, sexist, homophobic messages, because every time I wake up in the middle of the night, I see my son in this stance, being shot down like an animal, and they said that in their email. Shoot us down like animals. If we don't do anything about that, it's going to happen again. Baby's going to die the same way. I don't get it. Any other corporation, zero tolerance policy. You can't go back to work. They're back at work. And I don't understand it unless somebody makes me understand it. They killed my child like an animal, and they said it. That was their emails. That was their text messages. That was their message that they sent to us in the community. Thank you for the apology. Somebody please tell me why they're back at work. I don't get it. We don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. We don't get it.
As you guys see, this mother is grieving. Thank you, Madam President, and all the board members. I just feel, Mr. Christopher, won't you come on up, brother, please? You know, Reverend Brown, you guys come on up, please, Reverend Brown. I just feel that, honestly, as I think back, I think about Paulette's son. I think about Maddie Scott's son. I think about Salah's son and the 3 young men that was gunned down in the quadruple. And I think about Rose Richards' sons, which is my mother and my 2 brothers. And I think about December 2nd. But when I think about December 2nd, I think more of seeing it on social media over and over and over again. I think about how this mother had to endure and see this, her son, gunned down on social media. I think about how she went to 3 different locations to get information about her son. And she was rejected each time. When she went to Bayview Station, very disrespectful, we can't help you. She went to San Francisco General, we can't help you. She went down to 850 Bryant, very disrespectful, we can't help you. And this mother didn't find out about her son until the next day at 10 o'clock. She shouldn't have had to go through that. And I say to all the board members here, it happened in District 10, but it can happen in any one of your districts. And if it happens in one of your districts, you want the same support in your district that this mother wants. So you guys got to understand that it's not just about Black Lives Matter, but that's the importance. That's right. But it's about human life.
Yes.
And we got to accept the fact that we could do more as board supervisors, the mayor. You agree with me, won't you? You agree with me, won't you? Yes. And everybody in here that support Mrs. Woods, please stand up. This is the community, y'all. Understand? I lost 2. And many that's standing up lost loved ones. Do more than what you're doing. I've been doing Brothers Against Guns for 20 years. And I take this seriously. I don't play with this. We have to understand, when you're wrong, and stand up against wrong.
That's right.
When you're right, we support you. But we have to do what we have to do. So when we call for a full investigation and murder charges on those officers, as she mentioned, the mother, how can they go back to work?
That's a question. That's a question.
Because if I did something wrong on my job, I will be either in jail or I can't go back to work.
That's right. That's right. You'll be fired.
So board members, I close with this. I ask you, as you look me in my eyes, sincerely, deeply, see that mother's pain. See her pain. And just hope that you don't lose a family member like that.
Oh, nobody should go through that.
Because as I talked to Minister Christopher this morning, he said, Sean, watch the video. I only watched it one time, but I watched it again today.
That's right.
And my heart is heavy.
That's right.
It's heavy. I know we deal with police brutality, but we also got to take fact that we're dealing with other crimes, black on black crimes, and other crimes that's occurring. So we got to take heed to this, you guys, please, supervisors. As I pass the mic to the minister and Reverend Brown, please look at this mother as she suffers. December 2nd, she will never see her baby again.
Never again. My God.
All she has is memories. Thank you.
Madam President of this august body, members of the board, I sat where you are sitting now. nearly 20 years ago on this board. I'm very much aware of many requests that have been made by the citizenry of this town. But there could be no more noble, humane, decent, civil request than what you have heard from these fellow members of the African American community. It appears that the black community has been rendered invisible in this town. Check out the Chronicle this past Sunday. The spin of the article. The import was, you might as well forget about the Fillmore, calling the pallbearers to bury the African American business community. Shame, shame, shame on San Francisco. We must stop living this lie that we are a progressive, liberal town. Condoleezza Rice was right when she said, America's birth defect is race. And San Francisco has helped to nurture that defect. Where else would it be in this crusted earth that one ethnic group would lose since 1970 60,000 people? More people than the old Candlestick Park would have accommodated. And yet the faith community, the academic community, the political community, and the social communities go on as if nothing happened. And we maintain business as usual. I plead with you. I beg you this afternoon to not let the words of Mrs. Woods fall on deaf, insensitive ears. You might say, oh, I'm not of that mind and that ilk, but it has happened before. In this town, they call me the funeral preacher. I have presided over more funerals of young African American male and females who are dead before the deadline. The Bible promises us 70 or 80 years if by reason of strength. We have too many young African Americans dying from 15 to 35 years old in this town. And for the record, I want to conclude by saying the NAACP, like the prophet in the wilderness, stood up in the wake of Ferguson. And right here at this City Hall in room 201, I said to the Chief of Staff, to the police chief, Ferguson is in San Francisco. The chief jumped up and said, oh, no. This is liberal, progressive San Francisco. But I respectfully said, Chief, I know that in terms of geography, Ferguson is in Missouri. And we are here on the Bay. But in terms of attitude and the worst practices of police officers, not all of them, but too many of them, this is Ferguson. And I was vindicated The most recent egregious instance of Ferguson being mirrored here, reflected here, was when Mario Woods was gunned down, execution style. And I know that it's been said that it was a black person who allegedly fired the first shot. But it does not matter, because as Thurgood Marshall, that great jury, said, a black snake is just as deadly as a white snake. A snake is a snake. And we ask you to hold your hold. Don't be intimidated by the Police Officers Association. They have refused to talk with the African American community, thrown up a firewall in San Francisco, and the press needs to record that. What are they scared of? What are they running from? They need to come together and not turn on us. For in times of crisis, such as these times, we shouldn't be divided. My teacher and friend Martin Luther King Jr. was right. We're going to either learn how to live together as brothers and sisters, or we're all going to perish as fools. And I know San Francisco does not want to be called a fool. I hand out to all you members of this august body and to the press a copy of a document that represents the blood, sweat, and tears and the input of this black community. We've been meeting, and we hope that you will see that we are on our way toward being a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Brown. And Minister Christopher, Minister Christopher, would you like to make some remarks as well? We know that you've taken the leadership on the Coalition for Justice for Mario Woods, and we want to make sure you have an opportunity to say something.
Thank you for your courage, Madam Board President, and certainly those bold members of this Board of Supervisors. It's been a while since I've been before you. 5 years ago, I pledged never to come back, but some things are so significant in history that they require you to take a stand. The murder of this young man touched me so deeply and touched the world so deeply. In my nearly 56 years on this planet, I've never seen what I saw on videotape that day. And this mother grieves for her son. It was her precious womb that gave birth to this young man who was about to start a job the next day at UPS. But as we said to the mother, that was not the will of God. Ultimately, He gives life and He permits death. But He chose this young man as a martyr for this movement that now is sparking the anger, the frustration of an entire world of people who are crying out for justice. So the spotlight of the world is on San Francisco. Very interesting that Super Bowl 50 will be coming here in a few weeks. It's very interesting that TextGate came out, where officers said, as Mother Woods shared with us, a sergeant, a trainer of officers, a teacher of officers, said, "It's okay it's okay. It's not against the law to put an animal down. Those words were prophetic because these officers did not look at Mario Woods as a human being. They looked at him in that instance as an animal. In fact, worse than an animal, because a dog would not have been shot at 40 times. You know as well as I that a white male on Lombard Street or Castro Street, if he were Mario Woods on Lombard Street or Castro Street, the whole city, the community, and the world would be outraged. But the silence among some has been deafening. It should never have taken the mayor of this city 5 days to speak. He has never even offered condolences to this mother. A month later, she has not heard from this mayor. Something's wrong. Something's not just wrong, something's very wrong. When a mother can't get a call from the father of this city. And then the mayor came out and said the answer is tasers. Please wait. If tasers were in the hands of those officers with the mind that they have, if one shoot, we all shoot, then Mario Woods would have been electrocuted on December 2nd. The Police Officers Association has helped create a climate of impunity where you can do wrong and we will ride with you and defend you regardless. And anyone who speaks out in a balanced way will be threatened, will be ridiculed, will be disregarded, and run the risk of gaining the ire of the police union. This is wrong. This is not healthy. And apparently, as I conclude, there's this culture, this anti-black, anti-woman, anti-community of color culture within the San Francisco Police Department. And if there are good officers, which I know there are, then the question has to be asked, does the POA speak for you? And we need to hear some good officers say in a chorus, you do not speak for us. Otherwise, the POA is telling us what the culture of SFPD is. And the chief, unfortunately, like any good leader, the Chicago model is correct in calling for an independent investigation, but the Chicago model, and we thank Supervisor Breed for her bold initiative, and we thank those supervisors, Cohen, Supervisors Campos, and Supervisors Avalos, who will share with this community resolutions. We thank you for your compassion for this mother and this wounded community. But unfortunately, the chief has presided over these affairs. He was the chief when we lost Kenneth Harding Jr. And he told us that Kenneth Harding Jr. shot himself, and we watched a young man on the ground gasping for air for 28 minutes, and nobody called a paramedic or gave him emergency care. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. And what we have to understand and recognize, that when TextGate came out and the department knew about it in 2012, it's not good enough to say we didn't know, we forgot, or we weren't informed. So these are the kinds of contradictions that we can't let go, because the chief has eroded our confidence. He lied to the world and said Mario Woods threatened these officers and made moves to threaten these officers, and that's why he was shot. And at a community forum with a wounded community, when he was asked by a community member, what could have been done differently that night, Chief, or that day that could have prevented this, the chief said, in essence, he should have dropped the knife. Very cold, very insensitive, because we now learn there are things that could have been done. Many things. Restraint could have been given or shown. And this is why it's so important that the Chicago model be followed. Mayor Rahm Emanuel, when these tapes came out, and of course we can question cover-up, but the real point for this meeting is Rahm Emanuel fired his chief. It's not personal. It's not personal. But the chief, from the community's perspective, has to go. Otherwise, Mr. Mayor, you're going to have problems with this community. Please. Secondly, these officers are not above the law. They're law enforcement. But none of us can get away with what those officers did on camera. So those officers should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But at the very least, these officers should not go back to work. As we have learned, they are now back at work. Now, you know, San Francisco, as I conclude, you know how to defy the state and how to defy the federal government. You did that in the past. You have to take on George Wallace's spirit in reverse. As George Wallace stood at the gate in an act of evil to stop black people from going to school in defiance of federal law, this city has to say unequivocally, these officers in their racist, homophobic, anti-woman, anti-black rants will never come back to work in this city on your watch. That's a statement. These officers that murdered Mario Woods, at the very least, should be suspended without pay while these investigations are taking place. These are bold steps that you can take that will give this community a measure of confidence that you hear the cry of Mario Woods' mother and all of these mothers in the black and brown community whose blood has been spilt, but they are no longer forsaken because we have taken on their fight, and we plan to fight until justice rolls down the mountain like a mighty stream. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I'm sorry, sir, we haven't opened up public comment yet. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah, but we're not at public comment. We'll be there just a minute.
You don't want to hear me.
So I want to thank my colleagues for allowing the minister and Mrs. Woods to speak to us today, Sean Richard and Reverend Brown. I really appreciate you taking this opportunity. This is a really important issue, not only to me, but of course to the community. And we will be finishing up our roll call because I know that Supervisor Campos and Avalos have something to say in terms of their resolution. But I would like to read a statement from Supervisor Cohen, who asked me to read a statement about this issue since she was not able to join us today. I would like to again offer my sincerest and deepest condolences to the mother and family of Mr. Mario Woods. Your loss is tremendous and one that a growing number of families across the country are coming to know all too well. We will need an objective, independent investigation into this shooting because there are too many questions surrounding the circumstances of this incident. More importantly, the community is asking for an impartial look into this matter. President Obama's task force on the 21st century policing recommends independent investigations be performed in any officer-involved incident that results in serious injury or death. Right now, the community is struggling to have confidence in our police department, and we have a lot of work to do to restore the community's trust. Requesting an independent investigation is a good faith effort to help restore this confidence. What has angered so many in the community was the imbalance of proportionality of force that was used against Mr. Woods. There have been many questions about the level of force used and whether it was necessary. I believe the various videos that are in the public will help provide the answers to these questions. This disproportional level of force used, rebuilding community trust and transparency. These are all reasons why we need third-party, impartial, fair, and objective independent investigation into this terrible incident, parallel to the existing 3 investigations that are being performed by the city agencies. That is a statement from Supervisor Cohen, and with that, I want to, at this time, turn it over to Supervisor Campos, who will offer a resolution as well. And I, again, thank everyone for being here. And I am committed, as I said, to getting this thing done, to digging deep into the problem and making sure this does not happen to another person in this city. Thank you. Supervisor Campos. Not yet. Sir, we're on roll call for introductions, and we'll be at public comment after 2 more supervisors speak. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam President. And if you can add me as a co-sponsor of your resolution calling for an independent investigation. A number of us have spoken about the need to do that, and I think it's important for the entirety of the Board of Supervisors to be on record. Ms. Woods, I want to thank you for being here. And for me, the introduction of this resolution was a very personal thing. I have to say that part of me hasn't really known how to respond to the tragedy as it has unfolded. And this resolution came out of a conversation that we had with community that involved you at a meeting of this amazing coalition. And what struck me when I spoke to you, Ms. Woods, is first of all, the composure, the compassion that, notwithstanding what you have gone through, you demonstrated for another mother who was in that audience who also had suffered a loss. And what struck me and what was really painful and ultimately led me and Supervisor Avalos to bring this resolution forward was, quite frankly, the way in which the city and county of San Francisco has treated you and your family after everything that happened. It really bothered me that, and I want to thank, by the way, individual members of this board. I know President Breed, Supervisor Cohen actually have made personal comments to you. I know Chief Sir has done that as well. But it was important for me that we collectively, as a Board of Supervisors, we're on record as saying we are sorry for what happened. And what is disturbing, and I'll be honest with you, I wish that I had done more, is that it is not the first time that I've had to say this to the parent of someone who has been involved in the use of force by police. I had, unfortunately, the same conversation with the parents of Alex Nieto, who, as was the case with you, did not find out about what had happened to their son until a day or two later, and who never really got approached by the mayor to offer condolences. And what struck me the most about what you said today is this, that what happened with your son is not an isolated incident. Other things happen. And what I wonder is, if we had gotten it right with Alex Nieto, if we had gotten it right with Amilcar Perez Lopez, would we be here today? And that's why not only is it important in this resolution, and I want to thank President Breed and Supervisor Cohen. This is going to be heard on the 21st, this resolution that Supervisor Avalos and I are introducing. And I want to thank the co-sponsorship of Supervisor Marr, Supervisor Kim, Supervisor Cohen, and President Breed. But beyond remembering your son who has become a symbol, what this resolution does, and this is to me the most important thing that we can do as a Board of Supervisors to honor the memory of your son and the symbol that he has become, is that it puts the Board of Supervisors, if this board passes this resolution, on record for the very first time saying officially that we need comprehensive police reform in San Francisco. We had the opportunity to do that a few months back. Supervisor Avalos had a resolution that essentially tried to make the point that our revered leader from the community, former Supervisor Amos Brown, made, which is that as wonderful as San Francisco is, the issues that we saw in Ferguson are happening in the city and county of San Francisco today. At that point, the Board of Supervisors did not pass that resolution. My hope is that with this resolution that we're introducing today, we have the opportunity to right that wrong by saying, yes, we in San Francisco have to deal with the issue of race. We in San Francisco have to build the trust of communities of color when it comes to our police department. And we not only must have an independent investigation, because it is important to know what happened in this case, but I think we have to go beyond that. It's more than just an independent investigation about what happened with Mario Woods. We need to change the system. We need to change the system. So with that, I want to thank my co-sponsors of this resolution. I know that Supervisor Avalos, who has been working on this with me, has a few words. I want to thank my colleagues for what they have said. And let me say this, that policing is a public trust. It is a real public trust, and it's something that is critical to the life of a neighborhood, of a community. I used to be on the police commission, and I can tell you that at the end of the day, a police department is only as effective as the trust that it has of the communities that it serves. And by that measure, we have a lot of good people, men and women, who are members of this department. By that measure, we do not have, at this point, the police department that the city and county of San Francisco deserves to have. Let's make that happen. Thank
you. Supervisor Avalos. Thank you, ma'am. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, President Breed. And
ma'am, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. We'll recognize you during public comment. Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, President Breed. First of all, I want to say. Wait.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Breed. First.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, President Breed. First of all, I want to also say that I'll be a co-sponsor to your resolution calling for federal investigation to this incident here in San Francisco. I believe there are other instances where such an investigation is necessary. Right now, the case against the officers who had been involved in the officer-involved shooting for Alex Nieto, that case is in trial. So I believe that's federal court. And there are other cases that need to be looked at. The case of Amilcar Lopez Perez as well is something that needs to be investigated. So I do think that this case of Mario Woods is just an example. I want to also want to thank Gwen Woods for being here. And it's unimaginable to me what you are going through, and I am very impressed with your courage and your strength to be here, knowing how your heart is right now. I have a smallest glimpse of what you are experiencing, the smallest glimpse. I was on BART when I saw the video, and my heart broke. I wept right there on the train to see how someone could be treated this way by San Francisco Police Department. And your presence here, Ms. Woods, is a reminder to me, and I hope to all of us here, that we work for the city and county of San Francisco. And the city and county of San Francisco is not the city departments. It's not the police chief. It's not the police department. It's the people of the city and county of San Francisco. It's that we work for you, and our police department works for all of us. And to think that officers could commit such an act that looks so much like a firing squad with complete impunity, to have their jobs back and to be, as I hear today, on the force working with pay is absolutely stunning to me. Our city has not issued an apology to you. I have said my apologies, and they're completely insufficient. But I'm really hoping today that all of us can sign on to making an official policy. Something dreadfully wrong happened to your son, to you, and our communities here in San Francisco. And to think that that video could be something that we were following protocol is absolutely ludicrous. My first reaction when I saw the video was someone needs to apologize right away. And that never happened. And then when I saw that tasers were being promoted all over again as a solution to this without an apology, I just thought that something was really awry here in San Francisco. Or I was reminded about how awry things were, because last year in December of 2014, I had a resolution that was actually looking at how we could be mindful of how race is an issue here in San Francisco as well. And we have a lot of disputed cases of officer-involved shootings affecting communities of color in this city. And that resolution was not supported here at the Board of Supervisors. Now we have a climate where it is supported. And I don't think we need to come back to bringing that resolution forward. I believe with the actions that we have, calling for an investigation, issuing an apology, and calling for institutional police reform in San Francisco are sufficient. But we actually can't let this moment pass. This moment cannot pass without there being conclusive change in San Francisco. And it's not going to be large demonstrations, but actually rolling up our sleeves and working together and talking and dialoguing with each other to come up with real solutions that we can all agree with. It can't be a top-down approach either. So I look forward to being part of that effort, part of that discussion. I thank President Breed and Supervisor Cohen for their work on bringing this call for a federal investigation forward. And I want to work with you on that, make sure that the community is involved and apprised at all parts of discussion around these measures. So again, from my heart, and I do want to apologize for how the city has treated you, for the killing of your son. That is so hard to say. But this is something that should never happen again, and we have the power to change that. So thank you. I'm not sure if other people want to speak on this. I believe it might be my turn for introduction of other items.
I think Supervisor Kim wanted to make some comments before we move on. Yes.
Thank you, President Breed. I also just wanted to join in on behalf of the Board of Supervisors to personally apologize on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco. I still haven't watched the video. I haven't watched the video of Oscar Grant, of Eric Garner. I can't watch someone really die on video. This resolution that's been introduced by the board, of which I'm a co-sponsor, says that on December 2nd, 2015, Mario Woods, a 26-year-old African-American resident of San Francisco, was shot and killed by the San Francisco police officers. But he was killed and shot by the City and County of San Francisco. And as we talk about an independent federal investigation, which I support, as we talk about moving forward, I think that we have to all acknowledge our role in the murder of Mario Woods. One of the hardest parts of this job for me is that I know I support a system in which there is inequity and violence. When we talk about police brutality and police homicide, we're actually talking about government-funded force and homicide. We, in fact, live in a system and a society where we have accepted that the murder of some black men are necessary, in fact, for our safety, that it is an unfortunate consequence to keep our cities and communities safer. I think many of us have, in fact, have accepted that, and we need to do much more than that. Every year, I vote on a budget that supports the training of our police officers that tell them to kill and shoot. So we may blame these individual officers and say that it's the rogue, racist police officer that's out there. But we fund and train these individuals. And so it's a lot more than an investigation. I mean, we here locally as a body, we are accountable for SFPD's action. It is not just the police officers themselves. I stand and oppose many of the statements that have been made by our Police Officer Association. In fact, I was the only candidate running for the Board of Supervisors in 2014 that turned down their endorsement because I don't stand with the statements that they've made that race had nothing to do with Ferguson, that race had nothing to do in Staten Island and in Baltimore. We know that race matters in this country. And yes, we can say that all lives matter, but we know that it has often not been true that black lives matter here in this country. So, Mrs. Woods, I want to thank you so much for being here today, because you don't have to be here today. You, more than anyone, understand the injustice here in the city, and have personally have felt that through your loss. And there is nothing that will bring your son back. So I know that we all talk a lot about reform, and I have talked about it too, and that is why we have fought against the jails, against mass incarceration of what we know do not make our neighborhoods safer. But I just want to know that my heart is with you, along with many members of this board, and that I'm committed to this change. And this change is very hard. I'm not going to say that it's going to happen this year, but I know that I'm accountable too, that we funded this, that this is what the government did, that we accept this as what keeps our neighborhoods safer. And I'm saying today that that's not something that we can continue to do, that we have to fund something very different. And it's not just on our police officers. This isn't about being anti-police, because these are the resources and training that we give them. And so we can do more than that. And so I really look forward to working with you, but I do want to send and give you my deepest condolences and apologies for what has occurred.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. And I just want to let members of the audience know that we still have colleagues on the board who have items that they want to introduce. And I know that there are several members here who'd like to provide public comment, but I thought it was really important that we deviate from that in order to allow this discussion to take place. And so we will have some additional items to be introduced from my colleagues on the board. And then after we are done with that, we will open it up to public comment, which will give each and every one of you an opportunity to speak if you so choose. And with that, I want to re-refer Supervisor Campos for the items that he has to introduce.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I'll be very brief. Just a couple of items in addition. I am calling for a hearing on the investigations that are outstanding on the number of fires that have taken place in the Mission, one of the neighborhoods that I represent. I know that a lot of people have raised concerns about the fact that fires have actually gone down in other parts of the city except in the Mission, and I think it's important to look into that. And then the second point, and I want to thank Supervisor Farrell for his co-sponsorship of this ordinance, San Francisco keeping up with the times, and something that actually has happened in other parts of the country, where something as basic as going to the bathroom can be an issue for some members of some residents of San Francisco. We have heard from the transgender community that depending on how you identify yourself, you may be harassed if you go to a specific bathroom. And so my legislation essentially creates access to all gender to single-stall restrooms in San Francisco. It's a common-sense legislation. If you're a parent who has a child of the opposite sex, right now you have to choose which bathroom you take them to. If you're a mother who has a boy, do you go to the women's restroom? Do you go to the men's restroom? If you're a senior or a disabled person who has a caretaker of an opposite sex, you also have to make that choice. There are cities like New York, North Hollywood that have already gone down this path, Berkeley here in the Bay Area, and it's simply San Francisco keeping up with the times. And the last thing, I just want to say a big shout out to the new head of the Ethics Commission, Ethics Department, and that is Leanne Pelham, who specifically refused to cut the budget of that department until she had a full assessment of what the needs of that department are. I think that's the kind of leadership that is needed in San Francisco, because in the end, cutting the budget of the Ethics Commission, I think, can actually cost you money. So thank you to the new director for that. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you. I wanted to say to President Breed's and Supervisor Cohen's resolution, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well. To Supervisors Avalos and Campos, thank you for taking the lead on Mario Woods Day. To Ms. Gwen Woods, my sincere condolences as well. Picking up on a few things that Supervisor Kim was saying about the system, I'll just say that I don't support a system that continues to allow black and brown young people to be killed in the streets without accountability. And I join the Black Lives Matter and other movements in demanding apologies, but also systemic changes in our police system and law enforcement systems as well. My item before hearing from a few accommodations today, besides racial justice in law enforcement and policing, I believe strongly about racial justice and health equity and public health as well. I'm introducing a resolution today that will support statewide and local efforts to ban the sale and distribution of powdered alcohol in California. I just wanted to say that Supervisor Campos is joining me as well, and the struggle for health equity, and with coalitions that are youth-led, like our San Francisco Alcohol Prevention Coalition, the Youth Leadership Institute, Alcohol Justice, the San Francisco Police Department's Alcohol Licensing Unit, UCSF, the Department of Public Health, and others. I wanted to salute their leadership on these issues as I introduce this today with other colleagues. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Madam President.
Thank you. Supervisor Avalos, did you have any items to introduce? Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. See if I can get my thoughts together here after all of that just happened. So I have an ordinance that's an update to our Due Process for All ordinance that we had passed in 2013. That ordinance was actually to make sure we can have protections from local law enforcement from collaborating with the federal government in alignment with our Sanctuary City ordinance under the federal program that's been in place since early years of Obama, maybe late years of President Bush, was the ESCOM program, which essentially was calling on local law enforcement, the Sheriff's Department, to detain people past their time so that they can be picked up by ICE and deported. The thing is, a lot of people get caught up in that system who actually could very well be citizens, also people who haven't really had their due process to actually have their rights sustained through the process of our courts. And so we saw it as also a policy that the federal government had that was really separating immigrant communities from having trusting relationships with law enforcement that make all people who are residents in our country and our city unsafe. Last year, we saw changes to the ESCOM program in a new program that was created called Priority Enforcement Program, short called PEP, which called instead of it also included detaining people beyond their time, or that the city would notify ICE when a person was ready to be released, and ICE would be there to pick them up. The very process of contacting ICE for them to pick up someone puts a huge pause on anyone in the immigrant rights community from wanting to contact and have a relationship with law enforcement, either as a witness, as a victim, and it's very difficult for people who are still trying to understand their innocence and prove their innocence, who get caught up in our justice system and who could possibly get turned over for ICE. And that separation we want to create, and that trust that we want to create between local law enforcement and the immigrant community gets taken away when notification happens. Last year, we saw the Sanctuary City policy and our due process policy come under enormous pressure when a memo that the Sheriff Department had issued last March, that was the old sheriff, had issued last March, that basically was guidelines for how the department would coordinate their efforts with the immigrant community within the jails in accordance with our Due Process for All ordinance. This memo actually said under what conditions that deputy sheriffs could talk with ICE, when they should actually talk to legal counsel within the Sheriff's Department first, and when they should talk to the sheriff before talking with ICE. And there were actually instances that they could have communication that were referenced in the memo. This memo was called a gag order. And the gag order was used to actually, during a political year when the sheriff was up for re-election, a sheriff who had already been through many multi-year process of trying to sustain his innocence into misconduct charges and the aftermath of that, it was actually great fodder for a political effort to unseat him. And in the process of having this political effort, the immigrant community and the protections that we had wanted to put in place for the immigrant community were taken away. And so this update to our due process for all ordinance is essentially to bring back the protections we wanted to have in place to protect the immigrants who get caught up in our justice system, whether as victims, as witnesses, or as people who are accused. Last year as well, last fall, we had a resolution that we had passed unanimously that called on us to have a process to protect immigrants from notification to ICE. That was passed unanimously. At that moment, when we were voting on that measure, I said that I would be coming forward with an ordinance that would actually be binding, that would actually state our policy and our request to the sheriff, and this is in this case the new sheriff, to what the policy would be around under what conditions we would have notification. So this measure will be introduced today. I want to thank. I wasn't able to talk to all the colleagues about it, but so far it is co-sponsored by Supervisor Campos, Supervisor Kim, Supervisor Marr, Supervisor Peskin, and I'm hoping that since we all had unanimously voted on this measure last year, that we could all be in support of this effort. I've been told that the new sheriff, Sheriff Vicki Hennessy, is considering rescinding this memo. And if she were to rescind this memo, it would actually take away protections that are in place. And what it would do was that all deputy sheriffs would not have any guidance about when and under what conditions they could actually talk with ICE, or when they would be referred to legal counsel within the sheriff's department. This could create a large amount of doubt within the immigrant community about whether they should talk to ICE, whether they should talk to local law enforcement, whether they should talk to police and come forward as witnesses, even if they are victims. That is completely counter to what our intentions were around due process for all ordinance, and we really hope that before this memo is rescinded, that in fact Sheriff Hennessy can actually put her name on it, maybe make some slight changes to update the memo with new conditions around notification, and she can move forward with the same protections and the added protections we want to have with this ordinance that we're introducing today. So, colleagues, I look forward to other members of the board who want to co-sponsor this measure. And I look forward to the mayor supporting as well. And most of all, I want to thank each and every one of you colleagues for supporting the immigrant community with the resolution that we passed last year, saying that we would not honor the ICE notifications except for very narrow circumstances that are in our ordinance that we passed in 2013. The rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. And at this time, I have two in memoriams. Yesterday, on January 11th, Marie McKetchin, beloved deputy clerk for the Board of Supervisors, passed away, and so we'd like to adjourn today's meeting in her honor. And the final in memoriam I have is for Mrs. Beatrice Jackson, who was born on March 19th, 1929 in Louisiana. She was a trailblazer in her community. She raised two amazing daughters. She was the first African-American woman appointed to the Daly City Planning Commission and also appointed to the San Mateo Health and Welfare Advisory Board. One of her proudest moments was when her youngest daughter, the Honorable Terry Jackson, became the first African-American woman to be appointed to the Superior Court of California here in the city and county of San Francisco. Mrs. Jackson leaves a strong village of young ones who have been inspired and enriched by her good deeds and her love. She is succeeded in death by her daughters, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren. And so thank you, colleagues, and the rest I submit.
That concludes the roll call for the introduction of new business, Madam President.
Thank you. And now, at this time, Madam Clerk, can you please read public comment?
At this time, the public may now address the entire Board of Supervisors for up to 2 minutes on the following: the meeting minutes from November 17th and December 1st, 2015, whether or not the Board of Supervisors should convene in closed session for item number 12, and items on the adoption without reference to committee calendar, items 13 through 19, in addition to general public comment. Public comment is not allowed when an item has previously been subject to public comment at a board committee, and pursuant to the board's rules, please direct your remarks to the board as a whole, not to individual supervisors and nor to the audience. Speakers using interpretation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify. And if you would like to display a document on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFG TV and remove the document when you would like the screen to return to live coverage of the meeting.
Thank you. First speaker, please.
Man, you know what? 17 years ago, I was in Ocean View Park, and they killed this guy, shot him in the back of the head. You know, we had all these meetings, and we was gonna make all this change. You know what I'm talking about? And that's all I see right now is idle chatters. How about the Lacey T. Edwards Commission on Education with the letter from President Obama attached to it? Ms. Breed, you grew up in the projects, but you have no integrity for your people. Because if you did, you'd have been addressed that. And then, what could you do right now where I can leave with something tangible in my hand to take back to the community to give them some type of security that this ain't gonna happen again? See, I'm out there in the trenches, though. What you talk about, what you hear, I live it every day. So I feel the pulse of the people. And you so removed from that, you don't even have a clue. But when you push a cat in the corner, he's going to come out fighting. Since we've been in this country, they've been killing us with no resistance. Why? Racism. And until we address racism in this country, nothing is going to change.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paulette Brown, and I've been coming to the police commission and the supervisors board for the last 9 years concerning my son. And I am very emotional today because I feel for that other mother, Mario Wood's mother, when I watched her cry. So I relived my son's death too, even though the bullets came from a different person. But the pain is still the same, you guys. And it's been 9 years for me. And my 17-year-old boy. And I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of hurting. And I come here and I wonder all the time, am I embarrassing myself? I am tired. I want justice for my child also. I want the same thing every mother wants. I know you can't bring my baby back. I know you can't. But give me a little closure. Just a little bit. And maybe I can function better than what I'm doing now. Help me so that I don't want to have to look at this anymore. So that I don't want to have to see this anymore. So that I can put them away. But I can't put them away because I have no closure, you guys. I want the same recognition. Do it for all of our children. I bring it up because of other children, other mothers and fathers also.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Imagine knowing, for the authority be mine to say as I do, and the authority be ours to make it come true, to simply stop the murder. Americans are the most racist people on the planet, and to comprehend truly this fact requires standing on granite, as you do unto the likes of me. A prophetic statement by the most amazing, most beautiful black carpenter. Spoke of racism because it always included the animals. Who could have been more least than him? There are a group of people in the midst of a slaughterhouse speaking to people with bodies falling everywhere and blood everywhere, and they're blaming and pointing fingers elsewhere. Coretta Scott King, Dexter Scott King, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Gandhi, Einstein, Jesus, Malcolm Shabazz, the grandson of Malcolm X, all vegans. It is done. As I am the son of the Son, I am Peter. And the cops at their worst have been far kinder to us than we are to the animals. So it's time we get on that Freedom Rose bus. The slaughterhouse industry, so too that of oil, provides the spiritual justification for the 1% to rule over us as if they were royal. So how to apologize to ourselves for existing under centuries of deception, be the prophetic 40-day system shut down as a truly royal reception? As you do unto me was always an animal, talking about the animals. And those that are directing the slaughterhouse are the religious deceivers that have all this time, all these years.
Thank you.
That is the cause.
Thank you, sir.
Way worse than any law enforcement officer.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I say you hear it, so be it. January 23rd, we shut down the West Coast till all worldly corruptions be but for toast.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, President Breed, and all the members of the cabal. My name is Christopher Dahl, and I live at 6th and Howard, 10 blocks and less than 14 meters from sea level. I rise to comment on changes. I note that there is an old member of the cabal recently returned to your house. One faction loses, another faction wins, and so many things will change. Mostly the names on doors, websites, and documents. Otherwise, we have it on the expert authority of member compost that little else will change. Certainly, the housing supply will continue to notch up only 2,000 units per year, according to his expert testimony, and certainly the tenant supply will continue to notch up at about 5,000 tenants per year. And the land we have to build on won't change because the attitudes of all parties will certainly resist actual remediation of Treasure Island. According to Member Wiener, how we get around will not change. His expertise as Muni is good to go as is where he is for the next 20 years. Except, of course, that equipment, staff, and schedules will continue to degrade faster than they are refurbished. That won't change. And the red light runners and other vehicular terrorists will not change their behavior because there is no cost to misbehavior. No, members, the important things will not change. Our beloved city and county will continue to suffer hyperbolic rent increases because supply will continue to be constrained, and we will continue to suffer wasteful and tragic vehicular mangling and manslaughter because speeds will continue to be unconstrained. No, members, nothing will change until new narratives are offered, until new forces are awakened, until new faces are found. Thank you, President Breed.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for returning. Carl McMurdo, 2 years ago, the California Public Utility Commission created a transportation network company model allowing any car owner to sell e-hail app rides to the public. CPUC asserts its jurisdiction, but glibly admits having no meaningful enforcement capacity. 25,000 unregulated UberX and Lyft vehicles now troll San Francisco. This board needs to schedule a committee hearing on TNC policy. After the 1929 Great Depression, tens of thousands of New York City residents earned income using their personal cars as de facto taxis. The vast oversupply of vehicles for hire caused danger and chaos. Desperate drivers underpriced one another in a race to the bottom. In 1937, legislators passed the Haas Act to define the number of authorized taxis and rates of fare. Such was the genesis of the taxi medallion system. Our city could add 100 new medallions each year. They sell for $250,000 at a set price, so you're missing out on $25 million a year. Instead, TNCs have recreated pre-Haas Act conditions here. New regulations require that all taxis have an app. Flywheel is the most prevalent one. The customer pays with a credit card on file and can monitor the arrival of the ordered licensed taxi on a smartphone. TNCs ignore laws and safety principles. Generally, the fare rates are lower than taxis due to very reduced overhead costs, sort of like Walmart on wheels. Your driver will be an untrained, unvetted person whose vehicle is uninspected and uninsured for injuries to third parties due to institutionalized insurance fraud in the TNC business model. Service to motorized wheelchair patrons is curtailed as TNC ignore disability law without consequence. If you are currently a TNC app user, please replace it with Flywheel. District Attorney Gascon has filed a lawsuit hoping to require FBI fingerprint background screening for all TNC driver applicants. The supervisor should mandate this policy and also require proof of commercial insurance for anyone selling rides in the city. Thank you, and I hope you hold a hearing.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. I too represent medallion holders of taxis. And I want to explain to you, I did have a prepared speech, but I'm so moved by what happened, I'm sorry. You have to realize that San Francisco was the pride of the United States. You had the best taxi service. You had a taxi service that served more old people, more wheelchairs, at great discounted prices with voucher systems. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things wrong with it. You, as legislators, did not insist on more taxis as the need to move cars off the streets. And what have you done? Your illustrious mayor has allowed TNCs on. There are approximately 25,000 TNCs that work the streets of San Francisco. Most of them work illegally. Most of them pick up fares that they're not called on. And by doing so, they void the only fig leaf of insurance that they have. So your citizens and everybody else suffer when there's an accident. And because these drivers are inexperienced, they don't even know which side of the street the odd and even numbers are on, that you see them doing U-turns in the middle street and having accidents and holding their phones to look. But the other thing that you're doing by not trying is you're disenfranchising at least.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is John Fitch, and I was a mayoral candidate for the city of San Francisco. I was defrauded in that, and we'll go further in court with that. But I submitted a document to all the supervisors in the behalf of Ms. Woods. I gave one to Loretta Lynch, our senator, also to Kamala Harris, both attorney generals. They received the letter. and I got notification. Weeks later, Chief Sir is going to Washington, was told to come to Washington. Was that the reason? I don't know. I gave a copy of the same letter to one of Ms. Wood's family members because I know I didn't have enough time on the mic for her to hear what was in that letter, and you don't have enough time to speak. But once she opened it, she will have a little resolution because now everything is falling into play. With what Ms. Breed said and what every Board of Supervisors had mentioned. It wasn't just about Mr. Woods, but Mr. Nieto and Mr. Perez. And I've been following this longer than most people in here. And that's why I did what I had to do as a citizen of San Francisco. Even though I wasn't voted in as mayor, you can't give up. And that's why I took the initiative that I did. I came here for another reason on the catering trucks, but I know it's not enough time. That catering truck bill, if the supervisors want to reflect back in 2013, that ordinance was passed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I am with the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition, and they asked me to come up and just make sure that you have our demands clear. But before I give you our demands, I just want to say that on a personal level, I feel that Paulette's son's murder not being resolved and the murders of many other black and brown people in San Francisco not being resolved is directly related to the racism of SFPD. The streets know who killed these people, but SFPD doesn't care because they do not value the lives of the minorities in this San Francisco. And I want you to keep that in mind when you're considering police reform. But I also want to make it clear that the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition has three very simple demands. We want Chief Sir fired. We want what you've enacted today, the beginnings of an independent investigation that cannot be marred by SFPD and their gathering of evidence. And we want those 5 officers charged with murder because that's what they did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Board of Supervisors, I want to ask you a very important thing for which I want all of you to pay attention. You have to ask yourselves, why is it that this city does not have the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice? Why was it done away with? Secondly, if you Board of Supervisors, I know 6 of y'all have a heart, meaning that y'all are compassionate, but gather the rest, the other 5, and demand for a congressional hearing where each mother, each person adversely impacted can testify before those who represent us in Congress. Today, with only 2% of African Americans left in San Francisco, whatever others may say, shame on our mayor. If our mayor doesn't have the guts to apologize to a mother, and he hasn't done it only to this mother, but he has done it to the mothers where the 4 sons were killed. And I'm following everything. You know, I cannot expand myself so that I harm my health a lot because I put my life on the front line for a long time, but I do right. And I've heard some crocodile tears today. We don't want crocodile tears. We want action. Action for our children. Action for our single mothers. Board of Supervisors, I know some of y'all. I can feel your hearts throb, but I know others who are not doing the right thing. Please do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, members of the board and our president. My name is Maddie Scott. I'm the founder and executive director of Healing for Our Families and Our Nation, also the president of the Brady Campaign, for San Francisco and the Mothers in Charge chapter leaders for Mothers in Charge, a nationwide movement of mothers, grandmothers, aunts, and women who are sick and tired of being sick and tired of our children being gunned down in the street, not only just by police officers, but also by community violence as well. Our voices, it'll be 20 years next year that my son George C. Scott was murdered here in San Francisco. Is this right? Yeah, he was gunned down 20 years ago. Next July 17, 1996 was the actual date where he was gunned down at a graduation party, and many people in my neighborhood witnessed it and nobody came forward. So this is just not a plea, this is a national plea for mothers who cannot speak for themselves, who are at home on the couch medicating because of this pain and grief and loss that they're suffering because of the loss of their children. Ask Maggie Agnews, who lost 3 sons here in San Francisco to gun violence, who lives in the Bayview community, who cannot get out of bed and go to the grocery store without being reminded of her son being gunned down in her own community with her case is not being solved. Right. My son's case is not solved. I go back as far as Matthew Johnson, who was murdered by the police, shot in the back for taking a car. We were teenagers going to Pelton Junior High School. We watched him get gunned down by the police years ago, and that case have never been solved. So now I stand here on behalf of Mario Woods, on behalf of all the other families, the bloody beginning that we started here in San Francisco, where 9 people was killed in the beginning of January. My nephew Timothy Scott. The list goes on and on. I could just, all these obituaries of people from this year that died to gun violence here in this city, not just by police, but by everyday violence in our community. So I just want to thank.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Next speaker, please.
Hi. My son went to private and public schools here in San Francisco. This past May, he graduated from an elite university in New York City. But in the past April, he was returning in a car home, being dropped off, when he was yanked and pulled out of that car by SFPD. And I think to myself, what if they slammed his head one more time or pulled a gun on him? I could be Mario Woods' mother. I don't really have anything prepared, but what you guys did moved me to tears. Because what my son has in common with Mario Woods is he's a young man of color. And the ACLU has filed a lawsuit on his behalf. And I want to thank you because I spend so many sleepless nights and I grieve for all these kids. But for the first time since this incident has happened, I felt proud to live in San Francisco with what you have done today, that you have stepped up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm speaking to the Board of Supervisors, but also to everyone here, the public, and I just want to say that it's important for us to all understand that we need to connect with each other on this, and that we need to just step out of our roles in society and just understand us as humans. That I want to speak to you guys as humans. Forget Board of Supervisors or what positions you're in. Forget just being called the public. Let's just talk about being human for a second. We all have a responsibility here. We can't just leave it up to just a Board of Supervisors to solve this problem, even though their work is needed and necessary. We, as the public, need to be working together for this and need to be working spontaneously and connecting and grouping. That woman who spoke up was not out of context. We do need a resolution. We need a revolution. And we need everybody to step out of the restrictions of their role and what they think that they can personally do and step outside the box and just try something different. And don't be afraid to fight and join with every battle, because every battle is connected. Police brutality, mass incarceration, the war on women, wrongful laws against immigrants, the list goes on and on. This is worldwide. It's important to not isolate issues or battles, but every time you see a battle happening, someone struggling, you go out there and you join, because you're not just fighting for them, you're fighting for you, you're fighting for us all. and may love and peace resonate with us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
I've saw the mentality that killed Mario Woods here at City Hall. Deputies have gotten better, but I remember when Deshaun Marmon, we had a hearing for him, the man who was arrested off the airplane because he had baggy pants. So many black people showed up to City Hall. They had a bomb scare to clear us out. So I've seen that mentality right here. I remember being on a Muni bus. Like 4 or 5 12-year-old black girls. They was acting bad. They got into a little scuffle. Older white guy jumped up and said, "I'm calling the police." I checked him right away, and the girls were rattled. I told them to knock it off, and they did. But in my mind, I think I might have saved their life. That's real. They said San Francisco is Ferguson. I say it's Johannesburg. Black Lives Matter. You shouldn't have to say something like that because it should be assumed already, especially in a city that prides itself on diversity. I saw the mentality that killed Mario Woods when Kareem Mayfield a few years ago wanted to bring Friday night fights to San Francisco, to a tourist attraction city of San Francisco. Friday night fights, ESPN, and it was rejected. And Kareem is black, but in his camp is Filipinos, his trainer's Filipino, it's Latinos, white people, and it reflects what San Francisco is. We can have something real cool in this city if we embrace the real diversity like Rudy Corpus. Peace.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ernest Kirkwood, and I'm here in support of the resolution that was drafted by Campos and his colleague. My hats are off to you. You showed up at the meeting, you heard the community, you committed to the community, and you delivered. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the meeting when this is voted on, but I wanted to take this opportunity to share my encouragement with you. If this resolution passes, there will be folks that think the board has lost their collective mind. If this resolution does not pass, there will be even more folks that will be thoroughly convinced of this fact. I am not appealing to you as supervisors or politicians. I am appealing to you as compassionate human beings that know right from wrong and know that a profound and egregious wrong has been perpetrated against Mario Woods. President Breed, you were quoted as saying your mama told you all money ain't good money. And that is righteous, old school wisdom to live by. But I think it's a safe bet that President Breed's mama, my mama, and probably the mothers of everyone in this room also said, you can't take two wrongs and make a right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Phoebe Vanderhorst, and I'm the founder and the director of the Women's Aftercare Program and Supportive Services at City College. We address the needs of women coming out of prison and in their academic endeavors. I'm also a proud member of All of Us or None, but I'm not going to speak for All of Us or None today, nor will I speak for Way Past. I'm going to speak as the mother of a black family. And I go to bed every night wondering, is my grandson going to get shot? He's 21, he's in college. That doesn't make it mean anything anymore. I have other grandsons that are going to grow up, but will they? I don't know. I have to give the speech that every black mother has to give to their children about the police, and that is to instill fear. And that's not a good thing. To have to go to bed at night wondering if your family is going to live? No, I'm appealing as a mother right now, not as an activist, not as somebody who opposes institutional racism, which I understand is definitely the problem, but simply as a mother. You have to get rid of Chief Shore. He's got to go. He has to go. And not just police, not just him, the police department. It's out of control. It's been out of control for a long time. It's in your hands now.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Want to just show appreciation for the fact that the resolution was introduced before the board, that recognition of the crime that was perpetrated against Mario Woods, the family of Mario Woods, particularly Gwen Woods, Mario Woods' mother, who has to live with not having her son. And we know the deal. If you're a young person of color, particularly a young man of color, your life ain't worth a shit when it comes to law enforcement. And we know this. You ain't got to be a rocket science to know what that culture is, because I'm a man of color. And if somebody says, we're going to call the cops, that means that you could die, that your ass ain't coming home, that you ain't going to see your mother, or you ain't going to see your father no more, because they ain't going to ask you no questions. This is going to open fire. And this city, being a diverse city, being a city that is supposedly progressive, this is a stain, a big blood stain on our city. The city is dying. When you have things like this that are happening, the city is dying. This ain't the city that I grew up in. You know, I'm 5 generations deep in this city. There's less than 3% African Americans left in San Francisco, and that's a damn shame. The city don't care about its black population. They don't care about its black people. And we know that law enforcement don't give a damn either. You need to get rid of that. You need to get rid of the chief, and you need to get rid of whoever it is that is perpetuating this culture of death. Because make no mistake, the city is spiritually dying. It really is.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Jason Oringer. I'm with SEIU. 17 years living here in San Francisco. We're the community. And I guess I came here to speak about something else, but it strikes me the connection between a lot of these issues is we in San Francisco are becoming the city that forgot how in a lot of ways. You know, we had people standing up here talking about police commission and special commissions and about some of the things that had happened in the past and the remedies that people had found to those. And then they were disbanded. There were problems. And we're a union town, or we have been historically a union town, and we're fast becoming something other than that. And I think that, you know, San Francisco was an innovator and a place that figured out how to solve problems for people, not just how to get the quickest sandwich. And we're changing. And what I'd like to speak, one of the changes right now is, you know, we went to saw a hearing yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to speak there, but about the Super Bowl. We're making choices with the money and the resources that we allocate. And they talked about $1.5 million going towards security for the Super Bowl committee for private individuals, and another chunk of money for private parties that's put through 10B processes, and a really inadequate security plan that's in place for that. And I think we have to make choices. Are we investing in communities that need it, in police training that's required? Are we putting our attention on things that serve the community here, or in selling the community? And I think this choices are really stark, and we're at a big turning point in San Francisco. And those choices are before you now, and I think they're demonstrated clearly in some of the things you're discussing tonight.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Malley. I've been a security officer in downtown San Francisco for the last 30 years, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl and the problem with spending $1.5 million on a security company that's being under investigation from the state licensing board for not using licensed security officers at big public events, i.e. The Academy Awards. And we're worried that our standards that we fought decades to make security a halfway decent gig where you can get a decent wage and benefits and dignity and respect is being eroded. But the biggest concern is really that the city's going to be spending an awful lot of money for a security company that's not going to adequately protect the citizens and visitors to this event, because they're not really interested in security. They're being investigated in Seattle for not paying people correctly. They got kicked out of Apple and Google for substandard service. And really, in this day and age, in the way security is now, and the threat of terrorism and so on and so forth, can we really afford to go to a race to the bottom when we should be, as Jason said, San Francisco used to be the city that knew how, and I don't think that's true anymore. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Amir Varik Amma, and I'm a representative of All of Us Are None. We're a nonprofit working for the disenfranchised and community for over 37 years. My first statement is to thank y'all for even taking this time, but as I see everybody's sitting down, and I don't know if y'all really have a conscience that's really what's going on here. I don't know if y'all really know that y'all have an opportunity so the whole United States can see that you guys are actually representing for the people and not just capitalism. How can we have these elaborate buildings here and everybody in the street, not everybody, but a lot of people in the street are homeless? As you just heard about the money for the Super Bowl, just 10% of all that money that's spending for all these glory parties could house and feed everybody in your city. You have over $400 million getting ready to be allocated here for Proposition 47. Just $10 million can clean up this city. I don't know what you want to do, but we've been here for 37 years fighting for this community. And my name is Amir Amma. We're 3 blocks away. I will come personally to every one of your offices, every meetings, to show you another way how you can get the majority to help everybody in the community for the less money. I implore you to do it. As somebody said prior, African Americans is 3% in this city, 3%, but they're 56% of the prison. How is it that y'all have 2,100 police officers and over 85% of all their contact is with African Americans? If y'all can sit here and give me a logical answer, I would, surprise and politic for all of you guys. But I don't think no one can tell me an answer to them statistics. It's deplorable. But you have a way to start now, and the whole country can sweep and follow your direction. As I said, we've been here for 37 years. We have legislators, we have people in the streets, we have people everywhere that will literally come and help and work with you guys, if you guys are serious. But I see that
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Shannon Bolt. I want to thank the last speaker for everything he said because he basically preempted what I was planning to say. I would like to be standing here complaining to you about the money being spent on the Super Bowl instead of being spent to actually house the many residents who are now forced to live in tents along Division Street and other areas of the SOMA and in my neighborhood in the Mission. I'm in District 8. But unfortunately, I have to talk to you about the public execution of Mario Woods and the fact that San Francisco is the Ferguson of the West. And I think that as somebody who's a Bay Area native, I find that fact to be shameful. And I would urge the supervisors to pass this resolution. And I'd like to plant a seed for when you start looking at your budget. In order to reduce officer-involved shootings, there should be a system of penalization to the San Francisco PD, even for justified shootings. All officer-involved shootings resulting in injury should receive an automatic fine of $500,000 that's immediately transferred to the Department of Public Health. All civilian deaths related to officer-involved shootings, justified or not, should result in a $1 million fine. I think that you would see dramatic change immediately, and I know that as supervisors, it is your job to control the purse strings, so I urge you to do that. I also want to say that I'm here as a representative of Vote 123 San Francisco, and our project is to mobilize voters to make sure that you as representatives of San Franciscans are actually doing what we would like you to do instead of ignoring us, as has often been the case, especially over the last 10 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, I'm here again. And you know, it's really a mess, the city. You know, I speak for, who? Ross, the man who really is the man who should be our mayor, he should be our president, and we should recognize what is going on here. They appointed someone as sheriff, and then they were elected. They appointed someone as mayor, then they were elected. I mean, what kind of lies, deceit is going on here? When they swore him in, there was a lot of swearing, but we're blessed because we have this, and I hope we keep this, and I hope we don't lose this, all of this, a form. I mean, Jesus Christ spoke in a form that was given to him by our Lord in the Sea of Galilee, and we've got this, a microphone. Give me the mic. Because I am the unknown comic, the original. They stole my act. And I speak for Ross, the man, the real man. I spoke on your steps. Arnold Schwarzenegger, he said, I can't run for president. I'm not a natural born citizen. But you know what? He put it to me. He says, you run for president. You're the man. And I go, no, you're the man. And he goes, no, you're the man. You know what? How blessed are we? This form, everything. I'm going to make it real quick because I want to get to the mic. It's where Ross made his presentation. I'm crying now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Next.
Why don't we give it 5 minutes?
Thank you.
Shit!
Next speaker, please.
Tom Gilberti. I was hoping the holiday spirit would turn us up to 3 minutes. Last time I spoke, I said this was a good time to change values. I think we had another chorus in here saying the police department needs a restructuring in the training department, new value system all across the board. I spoke about accidents in wheelchairs, but I wasn't allowed to say, because of the restrictions on my time, my speech here, I could not say let the bicycles ride, and preferably not on the sidewalks. I could not also say no dollars for a needed new earthquake-proof jail. But now, I don't want the 1971 police levels. 1945, 1965, the greatest rise in the middle class, a wonderful time, GI Bill sponsored, a house in suburbia versus a shared bathroom. 1965, probably the peak. Father knows best.
let's see, Leave It to Beaver, Lassie Come Home. My father had his family in suburbia for 10 years, a product of Levittown, New Hyde Park, but in both Levittown and New Hyde Park, blacks need not apply, 1965. Then we go to Vietnam, we go to assassinations, social progressives, Black Panthers, anti-war demonstrations, Kent State, sons protesting protesting the government, while fathers are staying, voting for Nixon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Helms. I live at JFK Towers under the one-third income housing. I also served this country for 20 years in the military, and I taught at Berkeley University as a quantum physics professor. I lost it for a while, and now I'm back. But my question is, while I was gone, did somebody change the holidays on me? I am not allowed to celebrate Christmas on Christmas Day, New Year's on New Year's Day, Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving Day. I would like to know who changed the game. I remember serving the country. I remember teaching. I don't remember anybody telling me that the holidays are not the holidays anymore. Unfortunately, this year, one of my individual members of the community jumped over the rail and took her own life. And it is uncomfortable to have known maybe if there was just a gathering, a brief gathering, that this individual would not have taken their lives. I know it's not all our obligations or commitments, but it is our duty as a community member to state that when you say something, you need to follow through. I want to thank you for letting me have a moment to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed.
I guess I'm here in support of Avalos and Campos resolution. I definitely believe in that we need to stand up against police violence. We're at a point where the police will do what they want, and they write what they want in their police reports, and the chief doesn't question it. You know, the citizenry doesn't question it. The autopsy reports, the witnesses, they all say something different. And this isn't the ultimate step, but at least you're facing and looking in the right direction. That no police shooting people down. They say he was shot down like an animal, but when's the last time you heard anything about an animal being shot 20 times or shot at 40 times? So this was direct, overt, and malicious violence towards our citizenry. This violent entrapment and shooting is very parallel to the Willie Lynch doctrine, where they would openly and flamingly be violent toward Afro-Americans and divide the community. Okay, Avalos, what I would like for you to do is just come back to the committee, Campos, you can too, and just start asking for what you need. I think many people are there to support you, so come back, ask for what you need. Thank you. And ask of me what you need. I'll give you my business card.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Jennifer Raviv. I'm here to give thanks to Supervisors Avalos and Campos, a few others as well who've really been champions, in particular in this case, for bringing this resolution in recognition of the murder of Mario Woods. I'm privileged to live in Scott Wiener's district, beautiful district, Scott Wiener. I hope you'll consider becoming more engaged and educated around what needs to change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, really, Ace? Really?
Way home. I was watching this. It'd be remiss.
Okay, Ace in your face. Get busy.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. This is dedicated to all of the...
In the mic.
Yes. We people who are darker than blue, are we gonna stand around this town and let what others say come true? That we're good for nothing, they figure. A boy's born a different figure. Now we can't stand for that. Or is that really where it's at? We people who are darker than blue, ain't no time for segregating. I'm talking about black, brown, and all the gays too. Hey, yellow girl, can't you tell? You're just the surface of a dark, deep well. And if your mind could really see, you see your color, same as me. Pardon me, brother, as you stand in your glory. I know you won't mind if Ace tell the whole story. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to say this and dedicate all of the mothers and forgotten people, the supervisors, particularly Supervisor Campos and Alvarez that came to those meetings, and even our sisters and brothers here. We all must coexist, because in this city, if we don't, it's not going to exist. See, something is bigger than you and I that could put us all on one playing field. Just think all of the construction going on. If God said he didn't like it, it goes into the water. Who knows? Maybe that's why he got all us blacks leaving this city. But anyway, I just want to say Ace is on the case. I'm back here at City Hall in the press room. It would be remiss if I just didn't come down to just express myself here at City Hall. I'll be back, y'all. My name is Ace, and I'm on the case.
Thank you, Ace. Any more members of the public?
Hello, Miss Sylvia Johnson, and I've been having a real hard time. Just when I get my driver's license transferred, I get out of the hotel because the hotel tried to kill me. I was when I'm still staying alive. I had what you call walls, orange, and I don't even know how I survived from that. It's been really tough, and carrying around all this stuff because of some hotel manager with bids against me staying alive, and it's really ridiculous. I think it's a state thing that I have never in my life, and walking the streets for 12 days and for not sleep at all. And it's been ridiculous. What hassles I've been going through. The day I was supposed to go to court on my HIV hearing and for the mental health issues, I have not been able to go because I'm sick in bed, vomiting, sick, and I told the State Department that I was sick, I couldn't get there, and I had no idea. I knew I was on Mission Street, thanks to Mr. Keys, one of my lawyers, that had informed me on this, and I still didn't get the address of completely where I'm supposed to be going. And I know that we are supposed to be, having some kind of interview for this, to take care of our freedom, and I hope that we have some success on this, because I have been walking the streets for 12 days and 12 nights, not in very much rest, And I know I'm not sick as I was, but there's been, since the first of the beginning of the month, that New Year's has been ridiculous.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed. All right, colleagues, we are almost towards the end of our meeting, but before we move on with regular city business, I want to bring up my legislative aide, Valley Brown, who I know does not like to get this kind of attention, which is exactly why I'm doing it. Valley is going, this is the last board meeting for Valley. As many of you know, Valley has served probably one of the longest serving aides besides, I guess, Francis or, yes, well, you're close, Valley. You're close. She started here working at City Hall for District 5 Supervisor, former District 5 Supervisor Ross Karimian back in 2007, and I got to know Valley because I was the director of the African American Art and Culture Complex, and what I have always appreciated about her is not only does she tell it like it is, but she fights really, really hard for the community. And so when I was first elected, there was one person in mind to bring aboard to help me when I first became supervisor, and that was Valley. She accepted, and we've been fighting ever since. Right, Valley? But what I appreciate about Valley, like I said, is not only does she really go hard for the community, she really fights to make sure that other folks who don't understand what's going on in City Hall, people who feel left out of City Hall, she does everything she can to make sure that District 5 and also other San Francisco representatives feel included. I just got to tell this story because this basically is like your personality, Valley. I remember there was a guy in a senior home who basically put his bookshelf, and he basically locked himself in his apartment because they told him he had bed bugs, and they wanted to throw out all of his books, all of his mattress, everything that he basically, all of his furniture, and he was devastated. So he barricaded himself in his apartment, and it was a real challenge between him and the property managers. And I remember that we were, I think, in the middle of a conversation, and you stopped talking to me, you left, and you went to that apartment complex, and you got the Department of Public Health, you got all these other folks from the city on this case, and you convinced the man to unbarricade his door because we were going to be able to save his books and wrap them and do all the stuff that you know could have been done in order to make sure that he felt comfortable with the process and what was going on, because I know you care. And no small task is too small for you, because you care about people, you care about changing lives, you care about helping, and that's exactly why it's been a real honor to work with you. I won't talk about the times that you've yelled at me and made me do things that I didn't want to do, but I know that in every instance, as much as I complain, you only did it because you knew it was the right thing to do for the community. And so I've always appreciated your loyalty to our constituents, and I know that the work that you're going to go and do is going to make our district an even stronger, better community for so many people who need us to do better and work harder and fix the challenges of what's happening in our district around housing and affordability and preservation. So I couldn't be more proud of the work that you've done for me here at the board, for the citizens of our district, and the work that you're going to continue to do. So on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I have a certificate of honor, which I know oftentimes you prepare for people and you give out to people, but I just had to just embarrass you this one last time. I know you will be moving on to a new job, but you won't be really far away. And so I just, again, Valley, want to thank you for your service and your commitment to the city and county of San Francisco. It means the world to me and all the lives that you've touched over the years. You guys can clap. And with that, since Ace has already serenaded you, I will recognize Supervisor Katie Tang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Valley, I'm so sad to see you leave the second floor, but I'm also really excited for your future opportunity, continuing to really serve our city. I enjoyed getting to know you when I was also working as an aide, and you were definitely one of those people, who despite, all the political differences of our various offices, I loved working with our fellow aides. You were certainly one of those people who I felt like if you could be like Valley, then you would be a good aide. And the way you approach just all the different constituencies in the district that is District 5, which has so many different kinds of communities with that Valley finesse is really admirable. So I just want to thank you for your service. The fact that you could put up with President Breed, all those years says a lot. No, I'm just kidding. But I just want to thank you, and I know she'll also be very sad that you're leaving. So will the rest of us. But I wish you all the best in your future work ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. I was also a legislative aide at the time when I first met you, and so it's been, great to work with you all these years. And I can't think of other legislative aides that are so highly regarded as you are, both inside City Hall and outside in the community. And clearly, the length of time you were here in the District 5 office is really about just how much you were valued in District 5 in the community, and that was really your expertise. So I'm not sure where you're going, but I'm sure you'll do great work, and I wish you all the best. And I hear you're not going too far away, so that's even better. But just thank you. It's been really great to serve with you as a colleague and here at the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, President Breed, and thank you for doing this. And, I don't want to repeat anything that's been said, but I just want to say thank you. As the supervisor for District 9, I always have pointed to you as an example of the kind of work that we want to provide to our constituents in District 9 that we know you're providing and have been providing for many, many years to constituents in District 5. Thank you for your service. I don't know what's next, but I know that whatever that is, you're going to do a great job. You're a class act. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Kim.
I will be repeating what other folks have said, but I do want to thank you so much for your service. But you really are, and I think you may already know this, you are considered the gold standard in terms of amongst our legislative staffers, in terms of services to our constituents, being present. Your reputation is really unparalleled, I think, in any of our neighborhoods, and that just really goes to demonstrate, I think, your incredibly hard work and your dedication, but also your passion to serving our constituents. And I always feel very confident when I forward emails to the District 5 office, because I always CC you, that you'll respond probably within an hour, which is amazing, because I'm sure you get many emails from constituents on your own. So thank you so much. You've been someone that many of us have relied upon and have been just a standard for what public service means here in City Hall.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you, President Breed, and thank you for recognizing Valley publicly. Valley, you are in a lot of ways like the ultimate neighborhood activist, and I think the first time I ever saw you, it was before I was in office. I went to a very, very, very contentious neighborhood safety meeting in the Lower Haight, and you were facilitating it or co-facilitating it, and it was just amazing to me seeing you just sort of calm the situation and keep people on track, because those meetings can sometimes spiral into something else, and it was very impressive. And then I think the next time was right after I took office, because Districts 5 and 8 share a long border. Right after I was in office, I was walking in my district on Herman Street, and I'm like, is that Valley? There was this woman who was like picking up trash all along Herman Street with your trash, that little picker that you have.
Every morning.
And you weren't even District 5. You went over across the line, and I was just very impressed and appreciative, of course. My experience with you has always been that you care so deeply about quality of life at a neighborhood level and making sure the neighborhood works. And so thank you for everything you've done. And I know you're not going anywhere, and you're going to continue to do great work.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiener. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, President Bree. And Valley, not to repeat everything else, but I just want to say I'm really going to miss you and your personality here at the board and really in London's office. I think you've just been amazing to work with and just a ton of fun and just a really great attitude for all the serious stuff we do, but you take it all with a grain of salt. It's just been awesome getting to know you, and best of luck. I don't know, we'll get to work together, and I really hope we do so. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so with that, Valley, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone for the recognition. I really appreciate it. I just want to give a shout out to all the aides here because everyone works so hard. I just was talking to an aide and she was like, "How long have you worked here?" And I told her 9 years, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm exhausted and I've only worked so many months." And it's really hard work. And everybody that does this work is really passionate. And I think that is what makes the gold standard of an aide, as Supervisor Kim said, is passion with a gold standard. And I want to thank you. I'm happy I didn't follow ACE because that would have been completely my life as an aide. As ACE always there, but thank you. ACE, you're going to be right next to me anyway with my new job. So, and want to really thank Supervisor Breed. Yes, we have differences, but a good aide will have differences. You want to make sure your aides don't agree with you all the time and gives you different ideas and different perspectives. And just really want to, I've been amazed at how she's grown as a supervisor because your first year as a supervisor, I know, is really tough. It's a tough job. And I've just seen her in the last 3 years grow and just become really an amazing supervisor. And so I just want to say thank you. And I'm laughing about the certificate of honor because I've given so many of them out. I probably could wallpaper this room. But thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. I'll still be in City Hall doing some work in District 5. So thank you very much. You'll see me. Thank you.
And where to? City attorney. Conference with the city attorney. It's just the one. Do I have the parent? Yeah, it's in the shape. I have to borrow it. Yeah, let me read the title. Thank you.
Here we go. Let me get this out of here. All right. Thank you again, Valley, for your hard work. All right, folks, here we go with our next item. Madam Clerk, where are we on the agenda? Oh, closed session.
12. Item 12 is a motion that the Board of Supervisors convene on January 12, 2016 in closed session for the purpose of conferring with or receiving advice from the City Attorney regarding existing litigation with Pacific Gas and Electric Company.
Okay, colleagues, unfortunately, the deputy city attorneys who were going to join us for this discussion to discuss these pending cases had to be called away on a Public Utilities Commission matter. I'm sure you all are really disappointed. Can I please entertain a motion to continue this matter to the January 26th meeting? Motion by Supervisor Avalos, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. And before we approve that item, is there any public comment on this matter specifically?
On the continuance.
On the continuance only.
Yeah, my name is Sabaya Johnson, and I've been looking for it in the school in Palo Alto. Also, I've been looking in the city county of San Francisco, and where I used to be going to school in 2001, that I still try to continue to do that for this healthcare issue. And now I've been more
Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson. This is about a continuance for the PG&E item that was going to go into closed session, so it's a different subject matter.
Okay, well, I was talking about the PG&E, that has a lot to do with the healthcare issues, which I wanted to get in that emergency shelter for the healthcare issue. That's I do want it continued, but I'm sick and tired of always being continued for no money, and I will research for this AIDS virus, and it's getting real bad outside. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other members of the public, I will close public comment for this continuance. And with that, colleagues, can we take the continuance to the meeting of January 26th without objection? Without objection, the motion is adopted unanimously. All right, Madam Clerk, can you please read the without reference to committee items?
Items 13 through 19 are being considered for immediate adoption without committee reference. A single roll call vote may enact these items today. A member may object, sever an item, and have it considered separately.
So, Madam Clerk, I am going to pull item number 13 and item number 19. Supervisor Weiner.
I'd like to pull item 14.
Supervisor Marr.
Number 15.
Okay, Supervisor Avalos.
17, please.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's just call each item, please, starting with item number 13.
Item 13 is a resolution to urge the Director of the Department of Public Health and the Sheriff to convene a working group to plan for the permanent closure of county jails numbers 3 and 4.
Thank you. This is the item, colleagues, that I introduced when we voted on the jail project at our last meeting. And I know Supervisor Avalos has some recommended changes, and I wanted to hear his proposed recommended changes at this time. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's going to involve amending our resolution, but maybe just having some agreement that what kind of process we'll have for the working group. First off, I think it's a call that it's actually led by the Department of Public Health. That's the lens that we're looking at for looking at the services we want to be able to put in place instead of the jail. And there's also been a call from the No Jail in San Francisco Coalition, who has done a tremendous amount of work on the disapproval of the jail, and it makes sense that there's a large amount of community involvement in the working group. They would like to have 50% plus one majority of community members that are involved in the working group. They also want to make sure, as the resolution states, that we are involving formerly incarcerated people and organizations representing people who have been incarcerated. Also, because there's a disproportionate representation of African Americans in our jail system here in San Francisco, and not just here, that African Americans are going to have a large body of people who will be on the working group. And there's just a call for a good deal of transparency in the working group going forward. And part of that is ensuring that community members are not just there to provide input, but actually are decision makers on what the outcome and outputs of the working group will be. And lastly, there's an urging that whatever document it comes out of the working group, that before final approval, that there's ample time to review before the board will hear the document. So they're suggesting 2 weeks. To me, these are probably the most difficult piece is whether we go to 50% plus one. I like that idea, and I think given that the community has been a large part of the effort to raise awareness in City Hall on the not going forward with the jail, that we honor their requests.
Okay, I think the requests are not unreasonable, and I wanted to know would you like to make proposed changes to the resolution, or would you want us to just go on record committing to the requests? Because this, just to be clear, this group is a group that's hopefully going to come together, meet on a regular basis, make suggestions around policies and what we need to do here in the city for a mental health facility. And we definitely want to make sure that they're at the table and that the appropriate parties are a part of this process. And it will be a process. So I'm definitely open to all of the suggestions you mentioned, and we could either include language in the resolution to do so, or we can just make that commitment now.
I think we can make that commitment. I'm okay with that. It'll get a little cumbersome to do. I don't think it's really difficult to follow through on that commitment. Lastly, what they also suggested was making sure there's a transparent process about who's selected for the body as well.
Okay.
So to me, it's those are good principles to go by. We can agree to that. And my office will work with your office and other offices to be involved. I think I'll be satisfied.
Okay. I'm committed to that. Thank you. And I have a meeting with Barbara Garcia and Vicki Hennessy this week, as well as Roma Guy, which I'm hoping they will come up with the right way to develop this so that it is open, and the members of the coalition who advocated for this specific change are definitely, from my perspective, a really important part of this. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. With that, colleagues, roll call vote on item number 13.
On item 13, Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Peskin. Aye. Peskin, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee. Yee, aye. Supervisor Avalos.
Aye.
Avalos, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Campos. There are 10 ayes.
Okay. This resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you read item number 14?
Item 14, resolution to support the proposed California state ballot initiative entitled Safety for All Act of 2016, which will implement reasonable reforms and close loopholes in California's gun and ammunition laws.
Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'd like to add my name as a co-sponsor. And second, at Supervisor Cohen's request, I'd like to move to continue this item 2 weeks to the 26th.
Okay, Supervisor Wiener has made a motion to continue item 14 to the meeting of January 22nd, seconded by Supervisor Avalos. Colleagues, can we take the continuance without objection?
Madam President, pardon me, that's January 26th.
January 26th, thank you. Colleagues, can we take the continuance without objection? Without objection, the continuance passes. Item 15, please.
Item 15 is a resolution to extend by 90 days the prescribed time within which the Planning Commission may render its decision on an ordinance amending the Planning Code to revise the definition of formula retail to include subsidiaries or affiliates of formula retail meeting certain criteria, which affirms the Planning Department's CEQA determination.
Okay, Supervisor Marr.
Thank you. I move to table. It's no longer needed.
Okay, Supervisor Marr has made a motion to table. Is there a second? By Supervisor Kim. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, it passes. Madam Clerk, can you please read item 16?
Item 16, resolution to extend by 45 days the prescribed time within which the Planning Commission may render its decision on an ordinance, file 151084, amending the Planning Code that allows an existing bar on the ground floor in the Upper Market Street Neighborhood Commercial Transit District to expand to the second floor under specified circumstances with a conditional use authorization, affirming the Planning Department's CEQA determination and making other findings.
Okay, colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Item 17.
Item 17, motion to direct the budget and legislative analyst to conduct a review of the city's revenues and expenditures associated with hosting events related to Super Bowl 50.
Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you. This was a request that I had made of the budget analyst in December after the hearing that had covered the Super Bowl celebration planning events. And it really came out of being part of that hearing and not getting very much information about what the cost of the city would be and how city resources were being diverted to support the event. The budget analysts, as of last week, prior to the mayor's budget office coming out with information, had been telling me that they were having a great deal of difficulty getting information from the departments and from the mayor's office. And then right after that, the mayor's office released data. To me, we have a huge problem about transparency and about working collaboratively as city government. The budget analysts are our eyes and ears on the budget, and we expect that we would get favorable treatment from our office, getting information about what the costs of any event in the city would be. So, colleagues, we expect that we could get something a little bit different from the budget analysts than what the mayor's office has released. The report will be ready probably tomorrow or the next day, and today is just a formal vote that we have before us, and I hope you support this motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Avalos. Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, item 18.
Item 18, motion to approve a final map 7773, a lot merger and two-lot airspace subdivision, parcel A being 81 residential units and parcel B being 3 commercial units, mixed-use condominium projects located at 2655 Bush Street.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, call item 19, please.
Item 19 is a motion to approve a final map 8284, a 6 residential unit condominium project located at 1580 Lombard Street.
Colleagues, we need to continue this item to the meeting of January 26th. Can I entertain a motion to do so? Moved by Supervisor Yee, seconded by Supervisor Tang. Colleagues, without objection, this item is continued to the meeting of January 26th. All right, Madam Clerk, we are now at the imperative item.
We have an imperative item offered by Supervisor Marr, a resolution commending Beatriz Cardenas Duncan on the occasion of her retirement as Shape Up SF Coalition co-chair and declaring January 12, 2016 as Beatriz Cardenas Duncan Day in the city and county of San Francisco.
Okay, Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, President Breed. I wanted to acknowledge that Beatrice Cardenas Duncan was in the audience today with a number of family members and Shape Up SF and Department of Public Health supporters and members of the Health Equity Coalition that she's led for the past 3 years, the Shape Up SF Coalition. I wanted to thank her. I know many of you have worked with her as well, and we're going to hopefully bring her back for accommodation at some later time. But she really did want to be respectful towards the coalitions that were here earlier. But my hope is that we can pass this today, declaring January 12, 2016, Beatriz Cardenas Duncan Day in the city and county of San Francisco on behalf of her tireless work for the public health and for health equity in all of our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, before we are able to adopt this imperative item, we must approve 2 findings and take public comment. So the first finding is that this is purely commendatory, and is there a motion to move that it's purely commendatory? Motioned by Supervisor Campos, seconded by Supervisor Marr. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, it passes. And this item came to the attention after the board agenda was published. Is there a motion? Motion by Campos, seconded by Marr. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, that passes. And now I will open the item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this particular item?
Hello, my name is Sylvia Johnson, and I hope that she really works with me because I have, 12 different acts, and I hope that she can bear it with this because this has been, everything has been left out in our piece of our hearts communities that I hope this goes through City County Schooling Department, that she can relate with these 12 different actions that have not been explained in our counties, and I hope to God that everybody wants peace, because I have been searching already out to the street, and it acts like everybody don't want peace, don't want freedom, don't want to help me out, no payment, no nothing. I mean, I don't know where you're getting to, because I can really relate, and all these findings that makes a lot of sense. We've worked with her, that we've discussed this department in our budgeting, managing, and our just building our processes, that we can get, work out where we're at and what the hell we are budgeting for process in building and contracting, and because I'm getting into that already in Redwood City, and I think I'm having revenge against Bush, because he's been denying me for getting into the treatment department for the police department, and I'm I understand, because I've been trying to deal with him. I've called him up, already on this issue, that we can work things out, because there has been some issues that I didn't even explain, that we haven't even looked in this part of building processes and budgeting management and tooling processes and learning.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you very much. All right, colleagues. Actually, are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Colleagues, I will take a motion to approve the item. Motion by Supervisor Campos, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Colleagues, can we take this item without objection? Without objection, it passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please read the in memoriams?
Yes, Madam President. Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individuals. On behalf of Supervisor Farrell, for the late Mr. Jack Greelash, Mr. William Bill Del Monte. On behalf of Supervisor Peskin, for the late Mrs. Zelda Gordon, Mr. Roy Motini, Mr. Stuart Jackson, Mr. Ray Morante, and Ms. Denise Dorio. At the suggestion of Supervisor Yee, on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors, for the late Miss Patty Siegel, and on behalf of President Breed, for the late Miss Beatrice D. Jackson and Miss Marie McKechnie.
Okay, Madam Clerk, is there anything else on our agenda today?
That concludes our business for today.
Colleagues, this brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.